Is this going to be an explanation of each of the curses? I can see another candle to the right. So are we getting like an explanation of each of the curses, starting with the 8th? Chapter 2, the spirit camera. This is the strange story of how, with the reorganization of their local school, the students took pride in the new, larger building, as well as how the resident 7 school mysteries also grew by 1. Tale of how Takeshi Nonomiya got his hands on a camera. It begins many years ago with an incident that happened in the science prep room. This week, his group had the duty of cleaning the science lab in the science prep room. Science prep room was by far the more interesting of the two, as it was full of strange things. Because of that, it was popular among the students. That day, he earned the right to clean the science prep room after winning a round of rock, paper, scissors. There were a few students who did the cleaning diligently, but there were also many who used the time to goof off. That day as well, there was a group of girls skipping and chasing each other around all through the lab, science prep room, and even out into the hallways. By chance, all that time he was all by himself. He had finished sweeping and was flustered to notice he was the only one still cleaning, so he was about to go call for some of his buddies in the group. Again, the group of girls, giggling all the while, chased each other around the lab, out the prep room, and back into the hall. At that time, the last girl of the group happened to bump into the human anatomy dummy with her shoulder, sending it crashing to the floor. It hit the floor with such force it broke, its pieces scattering here and there. By looking at it, he could tell it could not be more horribly broken beyond repair. She and he paused for a moment, dumbfounded by what happened. Then their eyes met. To Takeshi Nonomiya, it was just an accident that occurred right before his eyes. He had no idea, or no desire to cheer or panic. At the very least, since he wasn't the culprit himself, he felt pity on the girl, considering how she'd apologized to the teachers and how angry they'd be. But after giving him an uncomfortable look, the girl fled back to the corridor. Then she resumed chasing after her friends, and he was left alone with the scattered fragments of the fallen anatomy dummy. From here on, this became a strange tale. Despite his insistence she broke the anatomy dummy, the girl and her friends claimed she had done no such thing, or in fact, they went even so far as to say that none of them had gone near the science prep room. But the image of the girl knocking over the anatomy dummy before his eyes was burned into Takeshi Nonomiya's mind. It was fixed there so clearly that if he could have, he would have printed and developed it like film. But the girls wanted him to produce real proof if he had it. But one can't develop that which is seen by eye alone, so he had no proof to give. Those girls were normally good students, and thinking statistically, girls at that age were more trustworthy than boys. On top of that, the girls had united their many voices against his. As a result, no matter what he did, the teacher decided Takeshi Nonomiya was lying. I love it when people do that. I mean, there are tons of sarcasm. That fucking sucks. It wasn't like he was beaten for it, only harshly scolded. But it was so very frustrating. Oh, he'd never forgive the girls who lied. What was truly frustrating was that he couldn't present the truth he'd seen with his own eyes. Even though people can see the truth with their eyes, as long as they have no proof to back it up, they can't call it truth. In other words, a person cannot see the truth with their eyes alone. Well, you can see the past, as you perceive it. It is a truth. Only by developing what has been captured on film can anyone see the truth. In his current state of mind, he began to wish strongly for something like a camera that would capture the truth and develop it into pictures. His decision to aim towards becoming a reporter or cameraman who sought the truth was a natural result of his youth and righteous indignation at the time. And so that became the catalyst. From then on, he began to slowly enter the world of photography. But something like a shocking photograph that would fulfill his righteous desires did not come quickly. That lens was instead turned on the more ordinary things that were close at hand. And before he knew it, he took almost poetic pleasure in the simple things he was able to capture day by day. As those days continued, his happiness eroded away at the frustrations he had felt from those false accusations. Soon he began to even forget the name and face of the girl who caused it all. And so, since no one in his class was quite as passionate about cameras, this hobby became his entire identity in the school. The concept that Takeshi equals camera had become a matter of fact. Even during outdoor school trips, he was allowed to bring a camera along for the purpose of school journalism. This was a huge boost to his self-esteem. He even thought that it might be nice to pursue a job involving photography in the future. So, joining the newspaper club came naturally in the flow of events. He was valuable as the person with the most knowledge of cameras in the whole club, and he'd feel a thrill of joy whenever the club counselor called him cameraman. The room was very old, however, in a school that was growing to meet the needs of the increasing student population, having a room that had some obvious history was a mark of pride for the newspaper club. So I assume we're learning about the same school, right? This is just a different aspect of the school. In the room, the club members sat around a desk on folding chairs. The shelves on the walls were overflowing with old books, documents, and clippings, as well as old and broken equipment. I wonder if I was supposed to be memorizing what the images he took pictures of were. There was no way of telling what belonged to the club originally and what had been brought and forgotten by members long ago. And above all, the stench of dust and mildew lingered in the chaotic club room. You know this newspaper club? It seems we got a super long history. Even before the war, this club's been around since the day the school opened, or so the rumors say. The club president murdered this suddenly while the club was in the middle of chattering idly, rather than deciding on the theme for the next bulletin. Takeshi, looking for an interesting idea what they could do with what they could go with, was fishing around in the old shelves. Because some of the older shelves in the back had mountains of piled books, some went as far as to say the place was a nest of demons, and once carelessly entered, no man could return. He was hoping in that hidden place he'd find something rare sleeping. Something amazing enough to put this endlessly repeating meeting to an end. Nonomiya, how's that look? Dug up anything interesting yet? If you're that far back, it's probably all pre-war albums and stuff. You're right. It's amazing. We're in the same room, but over here it feels like I've stepped right into the Meiji period. Like some kind of time capsule right here in this room. Yeah, only, minus the capsule. Everyone laughed at that. Weary from the fruitless meeting, it was as if everyone's boiling point for laughter was at a much lower temperature. Just like the club president said, most of the books on the shelves tucked away in that nest of demons were amazingly old. Even just looking at the dates, they weren't just Taisho era, there were many that went all the way back to Meiji. As he went through the books, he even found old, dried, ominous remains of insects. Term nest of demons wasn't all talk. Oh. Suddenly, Takeshi found it. It was an old instant camera. Instant photos tend to lose their color quickly, so it would have been useless for records. However, by using it, one would never need to go through the hassle of a dark room for developing as they would with a normal camera. Ah, that gives us a hint as to what year it is. I see. Put it simply, it was thought of more as a kind of toy camera. I'd always wanted one if I could get my hands on it, but before today I'd never had the chance. But I somehow felt uneasy about this. That I had found an instant camera like this, buried amongst a mountain of books that dated back to the school's founding, somehow made me feel uneasy. It was an old camera, but it was beyond state of the art at the time, the school's founding. In spite of that, it had been buried in the depths of this place as if it had been sealed away. I touched it. I felt a tiny jolt, almost like a static shock. I timidly pulled my fingers back and reached out to touch it again. It was cold to the touch. There were no names written on it or any labels marking it as school property. Judging by how dusty it was, it'd be fair to assume it had been broken and then abandoned here by some student long ago. I wonder, if I put some new batteries in it, would it even work? But even if I did, I can't use the film inside something this old. It probably expired years ago by now. But somehow, Takeshi couldn't tear his eyes away from this toy he found. Remember, the title of this story is The Spirit Camera, right? Maybe, just maybe, it could still work. If not, he could always throw it away again. If it did work, it would be the perfect plaything to change up his everyday life. President, do you think this thing still works? Takeshi, hoisting the instant camera, once again climbed his way through the demonic piles of books and returned to where the other club members were. What the heck is that? An old beat-up camera? Is it dropped back there? Yeah, all the way in the very back. Maybe it's something one of our predecessors forgot long ago? The other club members hoped there'd be something more interesting photographed on the film left in the camera. Because this was an instant camera, it didn't retain film. It would instantly develop and eject after taking a picture, thus no trace of past pictures could be found. And it wasn't as if there were any club members who wanted to touch this sort of old dusty camera. Yeah, but the nice thing about these, about instant cameras, you know, the ones that like shoot out the picture and you gotta wave them a bunch to get them to develop faster. The nice thing about those is that you'd already have them printed out if you took a picture, so they might be in those books. Not that anyone wants to go through the books, but they might have put them in the books. Scrapbook style, yeah. After someone suddenly injected a pun, they all laughed and their focus on the matter vanished completely. Takeshi left them to themselves and put some new batteries in the instant camera. Surprised he had them on hand. He wasn't expecting it to work. If it didn't, he'd trash it. In the 1 in a million chance it did work, it would be his lucky day. Those were his feelings as he changed the batteries. He turned it over. He was surprised the glowing light signified it was receiving electricity. Takeshi aimed the camera at his clubmates who were still laughing among themselves and pushed the shutter. The shutter resisted quite stubbornly, but then it made a pleasant snapshot noise of the click. The club members were shocked when the ancient camera managed to take a picture. Of course, Takeshi was as well. Then a picture appeared, sliding out from the front of the camera. At first it looked like there was nothing on it, but slowly an image began to appear. That's amazing. It actually worked? Yeah. Did you capture any ghosts in the picture? An old strange camera like this could probably do that, right? Now that you mentioned, I think I heard a story like that from someone who graduated. Somewhere in this room, there's a hidden camera that could photograph souls or something like that. Oh, I heard that from him too. He told me that when someone took a class picture with the camera, students who shouldn't have been there developed on the film. As they were telling the stories, the image on the photograph began to appear. Everyone crammed in close together, butting heads as they tried to see if there was anyone else in the picture. Of course, they didn't conveniently see a spirit photograph. The photograph only took a mediocre everyday scene at their club. Perhaps it portrayed their hopes, but at the very least it would serve as a nice memory of their meeting that day. The picture was fairly vivid. Even though this kind of photo couldn't be used for long-term records, it was a pretty good shot for a toy camera. Club president, about this camera. Would you say it's alright if I take a look at it for a bit? Yeah, sure, why not? The guy who brought it probably forgot about it a long time ago. It's old, so you probably won't be able to find parts or film for it. You found it, Nonomiya, so it's fine if it's yours now, isn't it? And just like that, Takeshi became the camera's new owner. It could be said the camera probably held no particular interest to the rest of them. There were only a few shots of remaining film left in it. Someone probably couldn't even play around with it, even though it was a toy camera. Even so, his encounter with the camera must have tied him to a divine plan of great importance. With that kind of positive thinking in mind, he headed for the exit. In the end, as usual, the group had fallen back to deciding on a safe theme for the bulletin. More than safe, the idea was so uninteresting it should have been rejected as soon as someone said it. If they were just going to decide on something like that, they should have done it way earlier instead of wasting so much time. Classic decision by committee. Say you need something spicy. Everyone argues about how everything is too spicy or too safe, and then you end up deciding on something that's like super freaking bland. Yep. Oh well, it's always like that. It was the evening dusk. In the hallway, stained orange by the setting sun, there was no sign of any other students. From a distance, one could hear the rousing shouts of the athletics club. But those were so distant, they only served to accent the hallway's loneliness. So there was no way I could have bumped into someone. I was so excited about the camera, I couldn't take my eyes off it as I walked. But when I suddenly noticed that someone was there, I jumped in surprise. And in that moment, I felt the camera slip from my fingers. The camera was such a fragile thing. If it hit the ground, it'd definitely shatter. With the grace of a badminton player hitting a birdie at the last moment, the girl before my eyes gracefully scooped the camera out of the air. Wait, what? It had been a hair's breadth from hitting the ground. You should watch where you're going, right? Next time, a camera might not be the only thing that falls over. The girl laughed with perfect grace and elegance. From the way she spoke and the atmosphere, I assumed she was an upperclassman. As I bowed in apology, I glanced at her name tag. but maybe by rain or something else, it had been washed out and was impossible to read. And so I was caught in the strange situation of not knowing whether the person I was talking to was older or younger than me. But it really didn't matter how old she was, did it? The whole thing was my fault for being so absent-minded. So, regardless, Takeshi apologized to her as he would to an upperclassman. Terribly sorry. Thank you very much for clicking the camera. Oh, interesting. He has a blue name tag. Oh, not at all. This seems like an interesting camera, doesn't it? Oh, you can tell? Yes, it's an instant camera, you see. It's the type that develops the picture as soon as you take it. Though it looks to be a pretty old model. All things often have various things dwelling within them. The camera looks as though it could even capture things ordinary cameras couldn't, doesn't it? You know about that too? The older members in the club had mentioned it. How there were rumors of a spirit camera being hidden in our room. They were saying it could be that camera. That's right, it's true. The girl giggled. Even though there was no wind, the girl's long hair was swaying as if in a breeze. Pictures are cruel, aren't they? They record the truth for eternity, but no one can really know whether it's a good thing or not. Human corpses rot, are eaten by worms, and give off such unpleasant smells, but in the end, they return to the earth and cleanly disappear. But what if there was a corpse you couldn't rot away? What if such a corpse remained exposed for all to see? Forever? I wouldn't want that. If I died, it's unpleasant to think my body would be devoured and torn to pieces, but the thought of existing forever as an unsightly, empty shell is unbearable. When I say that stuffing dead animals and taking pictures are equally as cruel, you understand, don't you? I guess she got the feeling she's making fun of him, of course. A person could use a camera in the way she was describing. That's why a cameraman needs to be ethical. What was okay to photograph or what wasn't. Understanding the difference, he always had to choose to share only the good things. What a nice thought. If you're that straight-laced about it, maybe there is value in entrusting that camera to you. Why don't you run around and play with it? I'm sure they'll have fun. Seemed almost as if the girl knew all about the camera. Of course, there was no way that was possible. That was probably just my imagination. It was almost like she knew of some prank-like mechanism hidden in the camera. The girl giggled with laughter as she walked past my side. In the hallway, tinted by the color of twilight, the figure of the girl walking away seemed mysterious somehow. I subconsciously found myself fixing her retreating figure into the viewfinder of the camera. As I did, suddenly from a window near me came a sharp crack. I jumped and, lowering the camera, looked over that way. Maybe a ball from somewhere had flown and hit the glass or something? The window was fractured in the shape of a spider's web. And then I noticed the girl had turned and was staring at me. It looked as if she was upset at me for trying to take a picture of her without her permission. That won't do. Free to photograph whatever you want, but let's not point it my way. I was just thinking it'd be nice to give someone a fright. But to do it here would be a waste. Sorry. I couldn't really tell what she was talking about, but at the very least I understood she was upset. Interesting. It definitely seems like we're exploring Higanbana, the character of Higanbana through several different scenarios. That's my prediction of what we're doing. The goal might be to try and solve her murder. And I'll probably be one of those people who's like failing until they get to the last chapter that tells you everything to your face. We'll see if we can do better than last time. She headed toward the other end of the corridor and soon vanished, leaving me alone in the deserted hall with the camera. This camera, just what was it really capable of capturing? The concept of having developed photographs come out on the spot was a joy I hadn't experienced before. Of course, filling up a roll of film and slowly developing it in a dark room is enjoyable in its own right. It isn't. But the ease of developing film on the spot with this toy-like camera was truly fun. With instant pictures, there was no long wait, and the colors would fade far faster than a normal photograph because they're meant to be taken in the moment, enjoyed in the moment, with ease. There were still some rolls of film in the camera, so I stopped worrying about it. Perhaps it was the very fact it had film left that made it impossible for the camera to rest in peace. Be gathering dust forgotten by someone while it was still film left unused in it It's a truly sad thing. If I thought of it that way, it seemed even more like my meeting with this camera was dictated by fate. So I wouldn't worry about wasting the film. I'd enjoy taking all kinds of photos of it. And then when I used all the film, I'd return it to where I found it. So I thought. Because one day, I realized there were only 2 shots left. So I decided to try something with it. Of course, I had mischief in mind. They say if you take a class picture, a student who should not be there will appear. I figured I'd try it to see if that was true. It was during social studies we watched a video and the assignment was to write down our impressions. I announced I wanted a picture of the class and took it just for fun. Incidentally, for some reason the film though it always developed fairly quickly, took much longer this time. My classmates, who were all waiting to see what would develop, all said the old camera was probably broken. They told me if there was film left I should try again, but I was worried, so I refused, and that was it for photographing that day. Had the chemicals of the film finally gone bad? Somehow I figured that wasn't it. Maybe it had photographed something. Something that should not be photographed. Perhaps the camera was resisting to spare us from seeing that. That day, the deep words spoken to me by the strange girl in the corridor returned to me. It was as if she had wanted me to take that picture of my class. Maybe that's what she meant by her deep words. I just knew there was something captured in this photo. That said, it was incredibly faint, but I thought I saw the picture beginning to develop. I looked at the photo after school, and it was still slowly developing. Even with that, I still couldn't make out the faces of my classmates in it. Takeshi somehow believed it, that in that photo he had surely captured something mysterious. Carefully tucking the photo away, he returned home, and when he ate dinner, took a bath or the like, and took it out each time to check it, little by little it was becoming clearer. And then in the depth of night, when he thought to give up and go to sleep, finally the image appeared clearly for him. He diligently looked over the image, checking the photographed faces of his classmates. There's no one in that picture. Yeah. There wasn't any strange spirit or anything like that on there. Regular ass camera? What was I thinking? How silly. Hey, we all been there. We all been there. Want to try something you're like really dubious about, and you're like, fuck it, we'll try it, see what happens. Before I knew it, I was holding my sides in laughter. Even though the photograph made me wait like this, there was nothing strange caught on film. The oddly long time to develop made me wonder, but even though I waited so long, in the end it was a complete letdown. What developed, no matter how many times I looked at it, was just a picture of my classmates. I looked at it from the side, I looked at it upside down. Something like a long-haired girl glaring, or perhaps a strange light or shadow being projected. I saw nothing of the sort. It was simply a classroom picture with my classmates as they should be. That's right. Every one of my classmates. Only faces I knew. Only faces I knew. There was Tano-kun. There was Fukada-kun. Is there going to be Maria? Or, not Maria. Maria? Oh, it's Marie. It's Marie, right. Here's Nishigawa-san. Ando-san. Who's that again? Since I didn't talk to that kid, I don't remember the name. Ah, there's Marie. Who is she again? Called it. That absent-minded girl with the glasses and that depressed look on her face? It was quite a sad story. We were in the same class and she was even here every semester, but I can't recall the girl's name. Who is she? Who is she really? There was no doubt she was in my class, yet I can't remember. Who is it? Who is she? Even though it's already time to sleep, I find myself determined to know. I decided that only if I could remember who she was would I let myself sleep. That's right. There was a guidebook from our field trip. Inside, everyone's group divisions were written down. It should have records of everyone's names. If I look in there, I should be able to find the name I've forgotten. From inside the pile of books on the bookshelf, I was able to find the guidebook. If I were younger, I would have thrown this sort of thing away without regret. It's just after making cameras my hobby, regardless of photographs, for some reason I started taking special care of recording materials. Because of that, I even kept this guidebook. Opening the guidebook, I could see a list of students divided by 6 people per group. When the groups were formed like this, there were some clearly incapable and pitiful children there. These kids were gathered up and made into a mishmash group. Being attached to that kind of group is the same as being labeled a black sheep. I was happy because I was with my friends who were always with me. I thought to myself, if there were children who hadn't been blessed with such friends, they'd probably end up tasting the humiliation each time they'd be put into this group. This girl seemed like she would have been in that group, so I surely thought she must be in that section. No, she's not here. It's not her. In the end, I couldn't find that girl's name. No matter what name it was, I'd be able to associate it with her face. And none of these were the name of the girl I've forgotten caught in the photograph. Huh? The bad feeling that had clouded until now had finally burst free. My classmates' names, I knew all of them. I even knew their faces. That face from without a name, it isn't from my class. What the? Something began crawling up my spine. There was only one way to be sure. First, I counted all my classmates in the guidebook. I counted them twice to be sure. Even counting them twice, there were 48 in number. Next, I counted all the faces in the photo. If for some reason the number of faces in this photo, if there's more than that, if there's more. My breathing hurried, intensified. My hands began to shake. The heads began to turn round and round in my mind. My finger was too big to count the faces with. I took out a mechanical pencil and with its tip I diligently counted the number of faces. Please. Let it be 48. It's 49. It's 49. Please let it be 48. There's 48 in my class. There are 48 people in my class. 46. 47. 48. 48. No doubt. There isn't anyone else. Whew. He's not counting himself. There are 48 students in our class. Time to start sweating bullets. You sweat bullets at 48, my friend. Because you're the 48th. I surely counted that many. Toppling over with a thud on the futon as if to laugh at myself, I burst out laughing. All day today, how much have I been worrying about this single photograph, I wonder? How foolish, but it was truly fascinating. I was relieved with the result, or rather perhaps I was fascinated by a mysterious 49th person in the photograph. It's that camera I treated like a toy from the start. Because of it, I had a lot more fun with it than any normal toy. Only one strip of film remains, but if I left it on purpose and put it back to sleep once again deep inside the club room, that might be interesting as well. Because future students will find it and they might enjoy it just as I have. With that, my meager curiosity was satisfied. I got it inside my futon. As I laid down, I pulled the strings attached to the lamp and turned out the lights. This is one of those things where, oh my god, he's gonna realize. Is he gonna realize? When does he realize? I would say, like, realizing right after you turn out the lights and are about to go to sleep would be freaking awful. But maybe he realizes later. Like, when would be the worst time to realize this? Or maybe it's like he's told, oh wait, you know, there. Oh, you dummy. You're the 48th person in the class. Does he get told that by a classmate? Then it would be terrifying in hindsight. What would be like the best time to do this? Let's see. Hey. Are you fine with 48? Isn't that fine? After all, there's 48 of us in our class. And the photo surely photographed 48 students. But I was behind the viewfinder. There should have only been 47? There we go! Oh! Yep. Oh, I was waiting for that scream. I finally realized what a terrifying photograph I'd taken. The girl with the glasses. I have no idea who she is. Could she truly be dead? But compared to the eeriness expected from a typical ghost photo, I couldn't sense that eeriness from that girl at all. It was my first impression from her image. Whether she was there or not, it seemed as if she underwent that treatment. An unfortunate bullied kid, always placed in the group with leftovers. Seemed like that kind of pitiful kid. Perhaps not having her name in the guidebook was another form of bullying her. The more I thought about it, the more familiar her presence seemed amongst my classmates in the photograph. It wasn't as if she was vaguely reflected in a window or mirror. She had a seat like everyone else. She was cowering as if someone were about to throw an eraser at her. She seemed like a normal student. Who is she? The more I looked, the more I stared at her. As if I had no excuse for not remembering her name, I had a feeling she was in our class. Couldn't be. I didn't know her. However, I felt the photo she was in was so natural as a class photograph. What's this? What is this photograph? Who is she? What is this camera? Tomorrow I'll head back to school and check my class. I'll look at the girl's desk for this photograph. And with that, I'll learn who this girl really is. Do something like forgetting she even exists, much less her name. As a fellow human being in the same class, I have no excuse. But why I had no excuse, I had no idea. But anyway, if we hadn't spoken, I thought at that moment, not even be able to remember her as a classmate was extremely sad. Some good audio design, too. And then I knew. The next day, whether it was coincidental or inevitable, that morning in homeroom, I had the job of making an announcement in front of everyone. Because everyone was present, I saw every person in class from in front of the lectern. I looked at the desk where the forgotten girl sat. I looked many times over, and so it seemed I had to cast aside my common sense that told me truth was captured in photographs. After every single thing I did during class, I'd pull out the photo and gaze at it. It was maddening. I didn't want to believe it. Truth is captured in photographs, that was my belief. And because of that, I took pride in being a cameraman. However, something that wasn't true was captured in that image. If that's the case, then I have to know. I have to find out who this girl is. At the time, I thought, someone thinking this photo was spirit photography seemed both blasphemous to the camera and myself, so without recklessly showing it to other people, perhaps thinking her face might turn up in other classes, I indirectly searched for her figure. But the school is truly massive. With an enormous amount of classrooms, even for girls in the same grade, faces of people I didn't know were everywhere. I imagine she might have really have been a girl from another class, and she stealthily mixed herself into our class. After all, the day was a self-study session. Other classes had it too, so students could enter our class to mess around, even pretend to be a student in the next seat over. I thought that to myself. For from her sad expression, I couldn't sense that kind of extraordinary ambience about her. If she had projected a more mischievous expression, there might have been a room for that kind of thinking. Nonomiya, about that camera from the other day. After all that, did it capture anything interesting? No, nothing at all. Thought so. In the club room, my friends had asked about my spoils of war, but I evaded the question. In their minds, they probably wanted it to take pictures of ghosts. And it had taken that fairly suspicious photograph. Even so, I was denying them that. If I showed this photo to them, everyone would probably be in an uproar saying it was a ghost caught on film. But that would contradict my belief that photographs would capture the truth. I also thought it strange. But I wonder, am I not a man of morality? Of course, that time when I felt mortified by those false charges in the science prep room because I wanted to dispel those lies, that was my motivation for going into photography. At that time, I thought over and over again what would have happened if the truth reflected in my eyes had developed into a photograph. And I think that's like a nice origin story for a photographer, actually. it might seem a little bit cliche. You're like, I need to capture the truth with my pictures, but I mean, some people just like taking pictures because they look nice, right? Having like a photojournalist who's like, I need to capture the truth with my lens because I couldn't capture it for something so simple like a statue being, or a anatomy figure being damaged. It seems like an interesting origin or a reason to start. It's a nice story, right? The only thing captured in a photo is the truth. I had certainly believed so. Because of that, I don't think I can stand this photograph that hasn't captured the truth. But that's not it. Perhaps it wasn't that kind of a convenient reason. Perhaps I was just frustrated. The mysterious girl, I probably knew her. I was frustrated because I couldn't remember who she was. You're a photography student. Get access to, like, last year's yearbook. Or this year's yearbook. You know, whichever one's recent. Check the yearbooks for faces. Easiest way to get that, right? Presumably you've been going to the school for a while. After an exchange with my friends in the club, since we weren't interested in our work, we decided to head home early. And then in that strange, same orange-tinted hallway from that day, once again met the same girl. That's right. Now that I think of it, I believe this girl knows what this camera really is. If so, maybe she can tell me who this mysterious girl captured in this photograph is. Well, if you want to know, I can surely tell you. Even though no words came from my mouth, regardless, this girl spoke in response to a question I had in my mind before I opened my mouth. Without a doubt, that girl is your classmate. If you remember her, you'll surely be happy with that. She'll surely be happy with that. There are 48 people in my class. She's the 49th. Even in the class register and photos, her name isn't mentioned anywhere. Everyone went and forgot her, you see? It's his fault. Are you heading out? Yes. Well, how about you try checking everyone's names by the shoe racks? If she's your classmate, everyone has a place to put their shoes, don't they? There might be ways to tease someone by hiding their desks and chairs, but there's probably no way to hide a locker in its entirety. Oh man, she's trolling the shit out of him. This is good. Checking the shoe racks? By doing that, could I learn the girl's identity? Even though her name's not on the class register, for her name to be left on the shooter racks, that's hard to believe. But that strange girl was saying, I should try checking there. The prediction she gave me, that if I wanted a surprise, that camera would deliver, it certainly did. Is she saying I should check the shoe racks? Maybe once again I'll find what I'm looking for. Thanks. I'll try checking it out. You do that. Later. Aren't you heading home? Huh? On this kind of evening, for that girl to be walking in the opposite direction of the exit, I felt something was a bit out of place and spoke to her. If she was taking part in club activities, she'd be at her club room or the gym. If she were returning home, she'd be heading to the same exit I was. I had no idea what she was doing based on where she was headed. Even the way she walked, she projected a certain atmosphere as if she were taking a leisurely stroll on lunch break. And then she giggled and smiled. Thanks. Why was I suddenly being thanked? I had no idea. That exit is for leaving the school and returning home, you see. So it's useless for me. Well, how about you head home? Your classmates have already left long ago, haven't they? So her class hadn't left school yet? I noticed her figure vaguely distort somehow. Are my eyes blurry? As if something were in my eyes, I quickly rubbed them and once again looked down the hallway. And the girl's figure had already disappeared. This is a fun series so far. In front of the entrance, where students take off their shoes, just as she said, I tried checking the numbered shelves for the shoes of my classmates. There weren't any shoes or slippers inside them, but there was one shelf labeled with a name tag stuck to it. All by itself. It seemed like it had been stuck on from a very long time ago. It was a worn-out label. Literally, it made me feel its loneliness as if it had been completely forgotten. I squatted down to read it, the name on that label. With a name tag this worn out, surely it was a student from many years ago. There's no way I'd know the name. See, I don't know any Moria. I said I don't know anyone named Marie Moria. Even though I had said those words, I felt as if the smell in the air was beginning to change. I felt like noticing something rotten from the garbage disposal. And just like that, I finally noticed the smell hanging in the air down the hallway. Ooh, I like their change in music. It's not the bell I like, it's the... Is that piano? Or is that a string? It's hard to tell what that is. Nice. I should have noticed it sooner. I had no idea how long it had been in the air. But now that I've realized it, I remember now. It's always been there. Marie Moria. On a rainy day in the classroom, boys and girls were making noise during lunch break. This not particularly special or unique scenery went through my mind. In one corner of the room, the girls gathered and carried on. I was ignoring that. After all, because they were bullying. I didn't treat it like watching TV after a meal, but that was my good conscience. How many girls were there? They surrounded their usual target, and they were lashing out at her about one thing or another. Even the guys were ganging up on her. It was a truly distasteful scene, but I didn't stop it. I didn't feel a sense of duty to protect her, and since I didn't feel I had a reason or necessity to fight them, I did nothing. During the lunch period, someone threw a piece of bread at her. It hit her head and landed in someone's bowl of stew. They said it seemed polluted and couldn't eat it, and so on and so forth. As for where in that process there was any value in accosting her, I couldn't tell. Of course, because I had no desire to intervene, I didn't need to understand it yet, and yet, if you think it's your fault, apologize. You should have said I'm sorry earlier. That's right, I'm sorry. Say it. I did nothing. Why do I have to apologize? Are you kidding? Everyone hear that? What do you think? Who do you think is wrong here? We have the verdict. Moria is guilty. Ha! Moria sat in pain. In bitterness, biting hard on her lower lip, hung her head in shame. That's right. That girl was Moria. The name tag, perhaps. I've been waiting a long time for me to remember that. And as if it had finished its duty, it began to dissolve with a hiss. Smoke, no, dust took over as it began to disappear. I blinked and looked again, but all that was there was a solitary vacant shoe shelf. But I didn't need the name tag anymore. After all, I remembered. Yes, in my class there were 49. I ran back to the classroom, and so I counted the number of desks, multiplied them in my mind, added what was left, and there were 49. This time it wasn't a hiss. With a whoosh, it was as if a huge wind had blown in. The scent in the air in the classroom changed dramatically. Something had changed. For I, who had no idea what the name Marie Moria meant until moments ago, didn't know what it was, but something had changed. I looked at the Bellmark names list on the wall. She was the kind of girl who would bring those to school and have her Bellmark score on the wall. Moria starts with M. She'll be toward the end of the list of girls. There it is. Moria Marie. I pulled that photograph from my pocket. I searched near the desk where Marie Moria had been photographed, and in that place was a terribly warped desk. The top of the desk had been carved with cruel graffiti. Die, ugly, and the like. It was in bad shape. Even her detachable seat cushion that would be used to protect her head in case of emergencies had been covered with ink and was maliciously stained pure black. I slowly took that cushion in my hand, because it was obvious her name would be written on that emergency cushion. Marie Moria. It was written there clearly, just like that. I decided I'd make a detour before heading home. I didn't understand what the camera wanted to tell me. It's a nice story so far. I'm really digging it. I'm digging the short story form. It's kind of nice because it's very digestible, even though that they're fairly long. I think the first one was like 3-ish hours. I think this is kind of nice because it's not like, it doesn't feel like I'm obligated to read like a million hours. Like I feel like if I finish chapter 2, I could probably stop and then come back to this next week and it would still be enjoyable. And I wouldn't feel like I was missing something. Yet, that is. Yet. But it's also like, it also feels like I got a complete story in the first arc, which was really nice. We'll see if this second arc is also a complete story. We're seeing like Higanbana and Marie doing some ghostly prank shenanigans on this poor photographer, which is perfect. A nice follow-up. But it passed into my hands, and with it I took that photograph, and aside from capturing the girl who shouldn't be there, it must have some meaning. In the classroom shelf was the same field trip guidebook I read last night in my house. By chance I thought to open it, and just as I thought, inside was Marie Moria's name that I'd struggled so hard over and over to find last night. And in her emergency contact information was a phone number and even an address that had been written down. The address was on the way home. It was a public apartment complex. I checked the mailboxes by the elevators. There was no mistake. Among the names by the mailboxes, the name tag for Moria was there. That's it. There's no room for doubt anymore, and I remember Marie Moria really had existed. She was our classmate. She really did exist. She even had a home here. That's right, the photograph doubtlessly delivered the truth. Now the obvious question to ask is, why did we forget about her? It's not like we just forgot about her. Her name disappeared from everything in the school. Even her desk. I remembered her name. Maybe I only could find her name in the class register in that 49th desk. Could this be that thing from the school ghost story I often hear about? Now that I think about it, I believe I've heard about this. That's right, the rumor of the creation of the 8th ghost story. The rumor that the yokai called Meso Meso-san that appears in the old school restroom. You gonna try and encounter it with Meso Meso? That girl was in fact a bullied student. She was killed by a teacher or something, and she transformed and whatnot. Wait, what? Have I really heard such a story before now? And the name of the girl was Moria? What? Did I have a memory like that? Are you implanting the idea of a ghost story in people's heads? What on earth is this? I thought it would just be an existing legend. Alright. Perhaps I'm being sucked into this school ghost story because of that mysterious camera? But this wasn't like a vague ghost story or anything of the sort. After all, the traces of Mary and Moria's existence are still here. Even her home's still here. Even though it had always been here like this, the truth hadn't been revealed. I steeled myself and called the elevator. With my mind made up, I couldn't go back. I'd come this far. I'll see the truth for myself. Finding that camera, taking the picture of the class, remembering Moria, and finally coming here was probably no mere coincidence. Someone, for some reason I don't understand, led me here. Does he have the camera on him right now? I walked the hallway of the complex. The various apartments jostled by the hallway, mixed with the smells of daily life in the various apartments. So I'm trying to ask myself a question. Is he getting spooked, or is he going to die when he goes to the house that it references? That's what I'm trying to figure out in my head. I'm like, does he have the camera? If he left the camera behind and he fucking dies, that would make sense. As that allows the cycle to continue of the spirit photograph camera. Oh, we'll see. We'll see. On the plus side, it was overflowing with life, but on the downside, the place seemed stagnant with an unwelcoming atmosphere. So there's the smell of daily life, various apartments, but it seemed stagnant and unwelcoming. And so I finally arrived. Moria, right here. Affixed to the nameplate was a card written and stained in marker. Written in small print after the last name Moria were the names of 4 family members. Maria's name wasn't on there. Wait, that's not right. It's a 5-member family. I let loose a small breath, summing up some courage, and I rubbed my eyes. Moria. It was as if her name alone had been weathered, and as if the nameplate remembered her name. At the end of the 4 names in the family, vaguely, Marie began to surface. I thought to ring the doorbell, but there was a sticky note there, out of order. Please knock. I looked at the electric meter. It was moving in a way that suggested the family was home. On the way here were still apartments with the evening newspaper at their doors, but there was no paper on their doorstep. That's because this apartment doesn't exist. That's a sign someone's home. I swallowed hard, and once again I looked at the door plate at the name, Marie. Then I knocked. I wanted to know the truth. The truth caught on the camera, but what kind of truth was it? I had to find out. Finally, I heard the voice of a middle-aged woman say, "Who is it?" Oh, is it gonna be she doesn't exist? It might be that. Perhaps it's Marie Moria's mother? I sensed her put on sandals in the entrance and look out through the people. Even if she misunderstood what I looked like, I couldn't have looked like a high school pressure salesman. As if to make sure, the door opened with the chain on. As the door opened, along with all kinds of smells, an older woman's face, more beautiful than I imagined, peeked out. Damn it, I was really hoping that'd be the case. Oh, young man. What's the matter? Excuse me. Must you be Moria-san's mother? Yes? I am, but which of the 2 are you asking for? If it was like the nameplate read, then there were 2 other sisters aside from Marie in the Moria family. I thought that's what she meant by which of the 2. While saying Marie had 2 sisters implies she exists. Then if she didn't exist, asking for her might seem inappropriate. And the way she made it sound, she put it made it sound like there were only 2. There's no doubt she didn't recognize Marie? What's about Marie? Moria? Who? Her mother didn't react to the name Marie. She had decided I must have been asking for another one of her daughters, so she must have misheard Marie's name, but I had anticipated that reaction as well. I'm guessing right, normally we can't remember Marie Moria. Without seeing the photograph I took with that camera, we can't remember her. So I took the photo from my pocket, and while showing it to her mother, I pointed at Marie Moria. It's about this girl, you see. She lives here, doesn't she? Which girl? May I have a look at this photo for a bit? With a profile that small, even pointing her out with my finger was difficult to indicate where she was. Her mother, with those smells ever so close to her, stared intently at it. I wonder, maybe her memory won't return? Maybe she'll just think I tricked her into looking at some weird photo? That's not right. If a person saw a photograph they were indifferent to, they wouldn't concentrate on it for a long time like she was doing. If I had the same experience, I knew. Her mother was beginning to remember. Well, don't you remember her? Remember? I could tell her words were trembling with an uncertainty. I could clearly see her irritation. She couldn't say for sure she didn't know her. Perhaps she pondered that she might not really have a family of 4 in her household, and a memory might be reviving in her mind that she had a family of 5? And then in a whisper she muttered, "What? Yes, it's Marie's son." I repeated that. At that moment she realized it, the truth about her family, and at the same time she burst with emotion. She screamed. That's right. Marie didn't come back for ages. Where's Marie? She never came back. She never came back. Where's Marie? Where is she? Where is she? She's been gone for days, you know. My fault. I forced her to study. I never thought of that girl's personality, and she's lost to us. Won't come home. She's afraid. She ran away. It's all my fault. Where? Where's Marie? Marie, please come home. I knew those words were deranged, but this was the first time in my life I'd seen a scenario so befitting the word. Perhaps if that chain hadn't been on that opened door, that woman might have lunged at me. While she screamed for Marie to come back to her, the woman ran into the house. I didn't know what she was doing, but I had a hunch. She was searching for remnants that she truly had a daughter called Marie, and that those traces had always been right by her side until now, but she never noticed them. For her now, perhaps she was seeing something like Marie's favorite mug. Even in the cupboards where those should have only been things belonging to her family of 4. She must be seeing that 5th member's things now. She might have been gathering those things in confusion as I heard a great clamor from within. Maybe she'd thrust those things on the rest of the family to prove Marie existed. But her family likely doesn't remember the name Marie. As long as they don't see this photograph, that is. Those violent sounds are probably the sounds of cupboards being turned inside out. Of course, without stopping, she continued screaming and calling out Marie's name. Damn, she got... her existence got erased? Ooh, that's brutal. I guess that's why, Higanbana didn't want her photograph taken, if it tells people of your existence. I came here intending to ascertain the truth. Maybe that weakens you? As a yokai? What I had waited for was just a strange conclusion. I don't doubt that Marie existed anymore. And Marie's mother remembered her as well. But even though we remember Marie's existence doesn't change the fact she doesn't exist. Even though she isn't here now, we remember her as she was. I wonder, did I do something absolutely terrible? Pictures are cruel, aren't they? They record the truth for eternity. The mysterious girl had said that as if she knew the camera's true purpose. Photographs certainly saved the truth. But the truth wasn't always limited to that person's happiness. If I hadn't brought that picture to her attention, the woman would have probably continued believing she had a family of 4. She would have spent her life in relative peace. However, I forced her to remember that Marie, one of her daughters, had disappeared long ago and didn't return. But that wasn't all. Even her existence had been forgotten by the entire world. So I wonder, can anyone understand her cries of lament searching for her daughter? No one could understand. She repeatedly called Marie's name, but the rest of her family couldn't understand whose name it was. Things were thrown or fell down with loud crashing noises, but I could sense she was coming back to the entrance once more. This time she might release the chain, open the door, and come charging at me, so he runs off, leaving her to even more despair as the rest of her family can't remember. I ran away. Yeah, this guy gives one person the knowledge of their missing daughter, and has the only key to let people remember it, and he fucking books it. What a guy. I mean, you want to cause as much strife with a photo, I guess that's what you can do. Give, like, a couple random people a memory restoration photograph of, like, a dark memory of theirs that was magically erased. And then let everyone else be like, what the fuck, that never happened? Basically, you're making every single other person gaslight them. That's fucking douchey. Holy shit, dude. Was it because I was afraid of the woman's madness, or was it because I couldn't face the truth the photograph revealed? I couldn't understand why, but I was absolutely terrified. Keshi Nonomiya began to run away from the apartment complex, never to return again, and yet he could still hear the mother's screams for Marie. Her screams echoed in the chasm of the complex, and they were screams that sounded as if they came from another world. I was really hoping that place wouldn't exist. I guess he's not dead yet. Since I ran in confusion, I couldn't tell how many wrong alleyways I went down. But since I knew I was somewhere in the neighborhood, without realizing it, I walked down a narrow alley I'd never walked down before. Rather than going down a crowded, wide avenue, I felt more comfortable in a forgotten narrow alley where no one would see me. I decided to take out the photograph once again, and after checking around to make sure no one else had slipped into this seldom-traveled street, I took it out. No matter how many times I looked, the captured girl's image called to me as if to tell me she didn't want to be forgotten. Or maybe she really was. For the first time, I thought Marie Moria, who had been completely forgotten for some reason by the entire world, wanting to be remembered, she might have then developed on this still image. However, her expression was unclear. She clearly looked as if she wanted to be saved. It was as if everyone in class had to be there, so she was unwillingly placed in the photo. It was a resigned sort of expression. And now I began to wonder, after seeing Marie Moria's mother's insanity, I began to think clearly. Did I take a picture that had to be taken, I wonder? And that photo wasn't something that could be taken with just any camera. I discovered something that was hidden as if asleep from within the jumbled piles of baggage in that place called our clubroom's nest of demons. And on a whim, I took that picture. No, I'm overthinking it. There was no way someone could rejoice at being forgotten by everyone. She wanted to be remembered by everyone. It must be heartbreaking to have your own family forget about you. So I had to do as she wanted. That's right. It's absolutely right. It might have been an excuse, but if I didn't think of it like that, my mind wouldn't have calmed down. I'll head home. I'll go home, get in the bath, and I'll have a dinner. I'll wrap myself up in my futon. I had to calm down. I had to think of what I should do. Or perhaps, if I did nothing, things would be fine and I could rest easy. In the skyline from across the alleyway, I could see the tall smokestack of the recycling plant that was also used as a landmark for this area. If I walk that way, I should see a street I know, or a levee. It was the first time I'd walked down this street, but though I'd lost my sense of direction, without letting that anxiety get to me, I walked down the alley. But the alley had many turns and bent in many places. Sometimes, like a maze, it would branch off, and as if the alleys were playing tricks on me, they would end in mischievous dead ends. The irritation of not finding a street I knew, since it let me briefly forget what happened at the apartment building, caused me to curse without restraint. Huh? In such a narrow alley, I was startled to find in front of me a looming figure standing in my path. The minute he starts talking about being unable to escape a maze in the alleys, I'm like, oh, that's a red flag. And this guy is also a red flag. The alley was so thin, I wasn't able to pass him without bumping into his shoulders, because the eyes make me think he's like the camera ghost or whatever. I wasn't curious to try it either. Regardless, the figure in front of me stood idly in this narrow alley, blocking the way. That figure, in contrast with the broken bicycle and the rain-stained washing machine, the mistreated plants that lined the alleyway, he didn't seem like he belonged there. Or here. My first impression, I felt he was an old British gentleman from a century ago. With a British gentleman's style, he wore a top hat on his head and a suit of some refined taste. Heck, he even had a cane. I couldn't exactly make out his features from under his hat, but I could clearly see he had a well-grown beard and even a monocle. He didn't look like he belonged in this back alley at all. It wasn't as if he was doing anything aside from merely standing, idly blocking the street. He didn't seem like he was out for a stroll or out to cool off for the evening. Rather, he stood fixed facing my direction, looking as if he were expecting me, and I started to feel a bit uneasy. Alright, well, jump into someone's backyard. This is super sketch. And I'd rather get to a street than be trapped in this unending alley, so, jump someone's back fence, and, go for it. Thankfully, there was another street nearby. Since I didn't want to pointlessly get near that strange person, pretending as if the wind had somehow carried me onwards, I then turned down the other alley. As long as I could see the recycling plant smokestack and use it like a compass, there was no need to adhere to a specific path. Who was he, though, that man? Or rather, if I'd seen someone out walking around in their underwear, which would have seemed more natural in this sloppy back alley, then maybe I wouldn't have felt so uncomfortable. But for him to be standing still like that and so utterly obstructive. Just like what I did earlier, forgetting what happened just now might be for the best. Once I was satisfied, cursing, at last I found an alley leading in the direction of the smokestack. I turned that way. The neighborhood was beginning to darken, lights began to glow from inside the houses. Perhaps some were preparing for dinner, but the sound of vents, the smell of fried food hung in the air. But even so, without any sign of anyone's presence, this alley was a lonely one. I'd taken quite a detour and felt I'd wasted a lot of time. I intended to make a quick stop on the way home from school, but now it's already getting this dark? Even by the time I left the school, it wasn't particularly early either. Saying it was expected made sense. Even so, I felt it was a little early to be getting dark. Here's again. You're screwed, buddy. He doesn't know it, but he's screwed. When I saw the figure once again blocking the way, there was no way I was seeing things. So I wonder if this guy kills you if you abandon the truth once you've seen it, or if he just kills you once you take a photograph of anything that people don't know. I'm curious which of it is. I don't think we'll find out, but I'm curious. There was no way I was seeing things. It was those characteristic clothes. I couldn't hide my surprise. The elderly British gentleman once again blocked the way. There was no way there was more than one elderly man wearing a strange outfit like that. So this had to be the man. Is this even possible? I avoided the old man and took a detour through another alley. Even then, what are the odds of coming across the same old man again? The old man stood the same as when I met him earlier, as if he were expecting me. He stood perfectly still, blocking the alley. Because of the wide hat he wore, I couldn't make out his expression, but for some reason he was staring at me. I felt he was... yeah. I wanted it to be just my imagination. I couldn't imagine that old man was waiting for me. Earlier, there were sometimes alleys with enough elbow room to squeeze by. This time, there were none. Go forward or go back, those were my only choices. If I asked him to please step aside, would he let me pass? By sheer coincidence, I might have just come across the same old man twice, or perhaps that old man was truly waiting for me. To know for sure and to escape this strange scenario, there was one simple solution. I could go back and search for a different avenue. If I met him a third time and that old man blocked my way, that would mean he obviously wanted to speak with me. If I had to share words with that mysterious old man, I'd much rather head back the same way I came again. Without hesitation, or rather as hesitant as I could be, I turned back, and after looking over my shoulder to make sure the old man wouldn't follow me, I began to hurry away from there. Sorry, I can't stay in this alley. It's already getting dark. I want to get home quick. I want to go home. When my mind understood what was in front of my eyes, chills jumped up my spine. Because even though I turned my back on him and left, once again I could see the old man blocking my path. Impossible. There must have really been two of them. Did they intend to corner me from both sides? What enjoyment could they possibly derive from something so stupid? I can't believe there's two of them. Two of them? Oh, I don't know about that. The man in front of me and the man behind me looked the same. I can't believe there'd be two of them dressed the same like that. Is there any other explanation? Am I supposed to believe the old man just flew past me or behind me at the speed of light? It's impossible. He's not a yokai. But the fact he was once again directly in front of me obstructing my path was the undeniable truth. There was no point turning around and running from him again. Even though that was my theory, I'd been completely overtaken by fear, so I once again made the choice to turn and run, because this time I was truly afraid. And there, where I turned, he was there again. This time he was closer. The old man continued to block my path. He turns around, the guy gets 5 feet closer. He turns around, the guy's 5 feet closer. There's no doubt any longer. Every time, just as I turn around, he's always on the other side. Even as close as the old man's eyes were, I couldn't see them well from under the shadow of his wide head. Even so, I could tell he was glaring at me. The way he looked seemed like a snake watching a frog. I felt if I talked to him now, it would mean my defeat somehow, but until I had an opportunity, I couldn't even lift a finger. When the old man opened his mouth to speak first, I felt a relief for a moment. Well, I suppose it's too late to say good afternoon. Perchance now's a good time to say good evening? Of course, sir. Good evening. Baited into a conversation. Good evening. His voice was like I thought an old man's voice should sound like, but he gave the impression of a coherent, healthy old man who was easy to talk to. For some reason, his warm tone seemed like a teacher's, and I sensed he might have been a teacher from one of the other classes in school. I thought that was a crazy idea, even though I had just met him thinking he's a teacher or something like that. Nonetheless, based on what little words were exchanged, he gave me the impression he was a teacher. The idea comforted me. Right before we exchanged that simple words, I thought he was like a yokai. There's no way someone can talk to a yokai. Humans are the ones who need to talk. At least there's no need to be needlessly afraid. Oh, that simply isn't so. In fairy tales and old stories, on occasion humans exchange words with spirits like Tengu, Kitsune, Oni, and other yokai. Oh, yes, sir. Even though I didn't say anything, the old man replied as if in response to my inner thoughts. Well, when being friendly with a pet dog, people talk to them as well. Even if you can't exchange words, it's possible to communicate with them. If you're talking about sharing words, there's nothing strange about humans communicating with not just animals, but yokai as well. I suppose that's possible. I'm sorry. For some reason, I apologized. I felt as if I'd been lectured for concluding that humans couldn't communicate with demons. No, that wasn't it. The old man was really a yokai, and he was upset I mislabeled him? Well, that's fine. That's a topic we can have another time. It's getting late. If you don't head home soon, your mother will worry about you. The old man laughed. Once again, it seemed as if he was sensing my words before they left my mouth. For some reason, I recalled the mysterious girl I met in the orange-tinted hallway in the back of my mind. If that girl was something more than human, then surely she must be associated with this old man, I wondered to myself. The old man didn't answer that question in my mind. But if I thought about it, maybe it was obvious. Now then, Nonomiya-kun, you have a strange camera, don't you? My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't how the old man knew about the camera. After all, I was slowly realizing this camera wasn't of this world, and the ones who would know best about this camera were like him. Not of this world. Yes, sir. I have it. Where did you obtain it, I wonder? In the newspaper room? Newspaper club room? Yeah, in the deepest section of the club where books and equipment are jumbled together. It's quite strange. What? The camera was so securely sealed away. It's not something that's supposed to be found by humans. How could you have found it? Oh, it's so very strange. Oh dear, oh dear. It must have been strange to this old man as well, because there was nothing stranger than being called strange by a man like this. Oh, no need to be afraid. I'm not thinking of catching and eating you. After all, you wouldn't have a conversation with your breakfast, If I intended to eat you rather than talk, I'd be eating. I thought he was laughing to help unravel my nerves, but to me what I heard is that he'd eat me rather than talk. Without knowing who this old man was, I still didn't know why he came to speak to me. But I wouldn't forget his terrifying presence. Oh, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'll quickly get to the point. I want that camera back. This is your camera, then? No, it's not mine. However, it's not yours either. That's right, but haven't I had enough of this mysterious camera? Then this is convenient. If I hand it over to this old man, I can be rid of it. However, handing over this magic camera I discovered miraculously to so readily to the old man. It seemed wrong somehow, so I had to ask this. Well, what if I don't hand it over? Hearing such challenging words might have seemed pretty disrespectful to him. I should have been more polite. I forgot that, and unconsciously I treated him like a friend. For a moment I had forgotten he was a terrifying demon, but perhaps thinking he'd be willing to barter something mysterious in exchange for the camera, I had said those words. Oh, are you saying you refuse then? Well, no, it's just since I found it. If you want it, can you give me something for it? It's a lost article, you know, at least a 10% finder's fee? As the sky began to darken, I felt a chill and suddenly began to tremble from the sudden cold. I sensed it right then when I said those rude words, and then I realized it. I realized I should have chosen my words more carefully. Exactly when the sun began to set, I looked at the old man. His face was completely covered in pure darkness. I felt that moment of silence would have been scarier than any scream. Oh dear, that eye opened. Kids these days can't be helped, can they? You speak modestly with them, they misunderstand themselves as equals. He's got a pale white eye with like some red in the corner of it. Perhaps like in the old days, I'll have to show you how to respect your elders, hmm? Keshin Nonomiya-kun. And then I had this strange delusion. I felt I was shrinking, or as if my feet were sinking in a swamp. The old man, the walls too, I watched as they grew taller until the sun finally disappeared behind the old man. I realized the mistake I made all too late. Even though I had no room to negotiate or anything of the sort, I still said something so conceited. Keshin Nonomiya-kun, perhaps you need something to light your fire, hmm? Or do you no longer think you're such a clever child, I wonder? Takeshi Nonomiya-kun? The old man's gigantic head with his face shadowed in complete darkness completely blocked out the sky above me. I mean, you could rescind your rude words, or you could just watch the horrible things unfolding for you. Might be too terrified to speak though, so fine. I didn't know whether my legs were sinking or if I was sinking into the asphalt. I gotta find the camera. Someone help me. This isn't the school, you know? Headmaster? Oh my, Higanbana-kun, hmm? When I heard that voice, the spell that had been cast on me disappeared. The old man's gaze locked onto something behind me. I looked behind me, and sitting gracefully atop the wall was that girl I met in the twilight hallway. A cool breeze rustled her beautiful hair and her extravagant skirt. She looked like a Western doll that had been brought to life. But at the same time, just like the old man, her being here reminded me how out of place they seemed in this dirty back alley. I had just had a heaping dose of out of place moments ago. Now I'm probably just misunderstanding things. They're not out of place. Surely under these circumstances, I'm the one who can't protect himself. And I'm the one who's out of place here. I'm Takeshi Nonomiya-kun's friend. Oh, is that so? One must take good care of their friends. You intend to lay a finger on him? If I, Higanbana, will become your opponent? Is that so? The old man called Headmaster and the girl called Higanbana had gentle tones in their voices, but they seemed they clearly had bad blood between them. And that girl called Higanbana might have made herself my ally. Takeshi Nonomiya-kun, move. Or you'll be swallowed up. Just as she said, once again I felt my legs sinking into a pond. But it wasn't a pond. Oozing and expanding from the feet of the old man known as the Headmaster was a pure black shadow. It was like tar, and the humans it swallowed must be pulled into the next world. The feeling I had moments ago wasn't just my imagination. I was truly in the middle of being swallowed. I ran back to the girl named Higanbana. She dropped in front of me and stood in front of the Headmaster, blocking his path. For a moment I felt I trusted her, but she was also a terrifyingly otherworldly creature. I could sense a terrifying aura seeping from her back. But for now, at least, she's my ally. Because of that, I didn't feel I could trust her, because they might just be fighting like a fox and a badger over me, their prey. How rude. Why can't you just think, thanks so much for protecting me, I wonder? Sorry? I got to think carefully. They can read my thoughts. There was no maybe about it any longer. They were truly not human. Oh, don't you think it'd be a futile battle? Hmm? Well, can you call it a fight, though? Taking you on at my age, with the way you play? It's exhausting, you know. How about you go home and rest? I'll even spoon feed you some gruel befitting a bedridden man like yourself. Perhaps you need something to light your fire. I'm familiar with the Legend of the Seven, you see. That's right. School's 7 mysteries. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Is he an alley demon or a school demon? The pond that seeped out like a black shadow from the headmaster's feet oozed over towards us and even climbed over the walls. It was as if he were spilling out of a world of darkness from the center of where he stood. And that black pond gradually came to Higanbana's feet. That must have been something truly terrifying, even for Higanbana. If not, the headmaster wouldn't have moved his pond forward and the like. But she calmly laughed without making a move. She seemed to be standing there like a fool. Is it alright if I eat you? That was probably the checkmate declaration. Once I noticed that the black mud was already at her feet. No, not quite at her feet. It was surrounding in a space, burned in space about the size of a manhole. It meant if Higanbana didn't finally surrender, she would be swallowed without a second thought. He had seriously provoked him. Even though the headmaster's voice is calm, I think he's mad with rage. After he gets her just like that, he'll surely come and eat me. If I don't run away right now, but my legs had slipped out from under me, I couldn't even lift myself from the ground. I might not even be able to run any longer. I mean, look, the sunset is close everything within the shadow of the darkness. Around me, all that's left is the space the size of a manhole. Everything else had been concealed by the black marsh. I won't ask again, you know. Is it alright if I eat you? Before you eat me, what if I think I'll be seeing you off to the infirmary sooner, Headmaster? Oh. Higanbana standing there laughing seemed like certain death. And this exchange between them must have been her way of somehow extending her playtime. But as to why she was playing a game that would only make sense during the day or at school, it was hard to understand. It was a game played by those who control the time after the sun is set on the school. Your lazy swamp sure is taking some time to get to me, isn't it? I'm bored. I'm faster, you see. Warned for a moment, injured for a lifetime, they won't even be able to put you in the infirmary. I see. A good proverb indeed. Even a lifetime of injury can result from a moment of carelessness, you see. See? I am that moment. It happened in a moment just as she boasted. The inner walls on either side of the headmaster swelled up and erupted from all sides. It was different from an explosion. Swelling up and rupturing free. Warped spearheads grew like a monster's claws and wrapped around the headmaster. It seemed for a moment he was like a bird trapped in a cage of thorns. When I looked closer, I saw they were the iron rods that were inside the concrete walls. We should probably be paying attention to things she says. I just want to go back for a second. Her proverb is, warned for a moment, injured for a lifetime, they won't be able to even be able to put you in the infirmary. Interesting. Okay. I don't know if I can work with that. But if we look closely, this bird trap, these are iron rods in the concrete walls. Interesting. Is this a hint to her demise? Is this a hint to her demise? The fact that she's using the iron rods from the concrete walls to threaten someone? Body buried in the concrete foundations of the school, perhaps? First guess. I don't know if it's accurate, but that's a first guess. That's an interesting first guess. We haven't seen her manipulate anything else, but that would explain why she has some degree of prominence here. Although she's third seat, so there has to be 2 other mysteries before her, perhaps? They had curved outward and even and extended, even sharpening their tips into spears? Yeah, okay. Countless spears surrounded him, aiming at his throat. Maybe now there was no harm in standing up. But for some reason, if I tripped or fell over somewhat, I might land throat first onto one of those spears. In other words, I was so completely surrounded by warped spears, I couldn't even move. That's a fuck ton of spears, alright? Of course, looking around Higanbana's feet, it seemed like the same for her. The manhole-sized space that was once around her feet is gone. Perhaps there was just enough there to surround the soles of her feet. This was a critical moment for Higanbana. If she changed her stance even slightly, she'd be immediately swallowed up by the pond. There was no doubt they were both on the verge of taking each other's life at this moment. How like you indeed. You are a troublesome one. Look for an early retirement, okay? But how about I make this your farewell address? Watch your language, otherwise you'll surely bring unnecessary hardships on yourself, won't you? And what if I want to gladly let you make me taste those hardships? Perhaps you can? Well, there's no need to watch what I say, is there? She's calling his bluff. Oh dear, oh dear. Karma. Everything is like the wheel. What you unleash will certainly come back to you. And there's no problem. Aren't we the ones free from those? In that cycle of life and death? Takeshi Nonomiya-kun, let's ask you. Truth or peace? Which do you value more? Ooh, that's a tough one. Harsh truth or peaceful existence? Always a tough one. He's had to make that decision. He fled from the truth. He's pursued truth with his camera, took a picture he didn't like, and has fled from the realities of the picture. Let's see what he decides. Huh? I hadn't thought I'd suddenly be dropped into the conversation. My heart began leaping in my chest. And after seeing that otherworldly scene, there was no doubting the truth that they were yokai. And that yokai was once again talking to me. Perhaps you should choose truth, peace. Which do you value more, Don't lend him your ear. If you replied peace, what do you think would happen? Higanbana-kun, cease your trickery. I'm asking him. Well, Takeshi Nonomiya-kun, which do you value more? Truth and peace. What does he mean by having peace in opposition to truth? It's pretty straightforward. Again, these guys aren't supposed to be super old, so it's fine. Perhaps he means denying the truth, therefore having peaceful days throughout ignorance? Yeah, that seems pretty quick. Surely ignorance can be bliss, but that can't be a good thing. For humans, even if we don't want to, there are truths we must know. For instance, an environmental problem is a good example. If I were to discuss it, surely we'd have to face some restrictions in our lifestyles, but nonetheless, if we pretend we don't know about it and continue living peacefully, the price will certainly befall the future of humanity. Haven't I learned that from life in the newspaper club? If people avert their eyes from the truth, thrusting at them, we must raise these questions. Marie Moria's photograph certainly was a strange thing, but Marie, who'd been caught in the photograph, was forgotten by her classmates and everyone else. Even her own mother. By showing her that photo, her mother remembered. Sure, it might have been something shocking. Undertaking the impact of what she'd forgotten until now, I can understand why she temporarily panicked, but Marie Moria must have been happy with that I'd let her remember. She must be rejoicing somewhere. Perhaps she had been swallowed by this demon called Headmaster, her existence extinguished. And that camera dug up the truth that Marie Moria certainly did exist. It brought back her existence that had been extinguished with the power of a yokai. That's it. When revealed on film, it becomes the truth. Regardless of what might be revealed, just seeing it invokes the truth. And when I saw the power of the mysterious camera with my own eyes, I was certainly terrified. But if I think about it, I didn't do anything strange. What was strange was the disappearance of Marie Moria's very existence. That was so much worse. With that camera, I tore through the doubt and revealed the truth. I protected the name of Marie Moria. And without even opening my mouth, I had created my clear answer. So he thinks, Headmaster. Takeshi Nonomiya-kun chose truth? Choose truth over peace. I like a youngster. So like a youngster to say. Very well, Higanbana-kun. Perhaps we should stop here for now. How wise. After all, I don't want to get my favorite shoes dirty. I agree. I don't want my favorite overcoat to be full of holes either, you see? The warped spears that surrounded the headmaster, as if being rewound on a videotape, began to be swallowed by the walls they ruptured from. And returning to a bulge, they gradually became flat, and as if nothing happened at all, the rain-stained walls returned to their original smoothness. At the same time, the ground nearby, that had been filled with black pond, moving sloppily, began to return to the headmaster's feet. I noticed everything around was as it was before, even the brightness of the sky. I felt as if I'd been squaring off for a long time, but perhaps it was for an instant. The smell of fried food reached my nose. It was probably the smell that hung in the air earlier, even though it felt like the smell had returned. How can I best describe it? It felt as though the air of the living had returned. If so, was this back alley a different world? Was that back alley a different world from this one? Now that I think about it, I can't quite tell. Well, I suppose I'll excuse myself, shall I? Guess you know Namia-kun. I've been keeping you, haven't I? Head straight home. Well then, Higanbana, some other time? Yes, some other time. I'll come visit you and bring your gruel. Just a spoonful. Ho ho. May I have two? You're right. You've earned the honor. I'll bring 2 helpings of gruel. Later then. Take care of yourself. Indeed, indeed, the doll in the infirmary would say something like that. And farewell, eh? Ho ho. Fades out of existence. The headmaster's figure slowly diluted away. It was like a swaying mirage. Thinking my eyes were getting fuzzy, I wiped my eyes, and when I looked again, he'd completely disappeared. However, Higanbana didn't disappear, and there she was. She turned to me and stretched out her hand. She was laughing mischievously, as if wordlessly wondering how long I'd been lying there. Thanks for helping me. Oh, you're welcome. If I'd come just a tad later, you'd have unknowingly disappeared from here in this alleyway on the way home from school, you know? Not just your physical form, but from the class register and group pictures too, yeah? Of course. Maybe even your teacups might disappear from your house. Higanbana laughed as if to say, as you are now, you understand best of all, don't you? A moment later, and I would have been sucked into that pure black pond. And then, like Maria Moria, even memories of my existence will surely disappear from the face of the earth. Aside from photographs this mysterious camera captured, my existence would be completely forgotten. In our school, he's been a school yokai for a very long time, you see. We call him the school yokai of the 1st rank, headmaster. I am Higanbana of the 3rd rank. Haven't you seen the Western doll sitting atop the medicine cabinets in the infirmary? I've never gone to the infirmary. Oh. Well, I'll invite you next time. I'll send an invitation along with an appropriate injury worthy of the infirmary, perhaps? Higanbana gave a mischievous smile, but I didn't feel like laughing. Just watching her last exchange, she seemed more dangerous than the headmaster. What I saw, seemed like the headmaster attacked her with everything he had and begrudgingly had to retreat. The terrifying creature was right in front of my eyes. If I had the impoliteness I had before, this time I'd certainly be killed. That's fine with me. Fear communicates respect. It's one of the fundamental rules of etiquette, so one doesn't get cursed. Don't worry, it's just like you said, you see. If I intended to eat you, I wouldn't wait. I'd take you in a single bite. Talking with you like this means, at least for now, I have no intention of doing so. For now? Well, there's no need to be so afraid, you see. Right now, this of Takeshi no Nomiya-kun doesn't look that tasty. I don't have the urge yet, you see. Looking at it now, all the fuss would ruin the flavor. Means I can't relax at all, because I now clearly understand who's dominant on the food chain between us. Well, come with me. This alley is his barrier. If you're by yourself, no matter how far you walked, you'd only keep circling around this same alley, you see. Why me? Why was a yokai who treated humans like food saving me? As long as I couldn't know for sure, I couldn't come with her. After Higanbana made a face as if to say, jeez. As a serene expression befitting her return, she spoke. As you're getting revenge for my friend? So perhaps you could call it returning the favor. Revenge? Today you went to my friend's house and let her mother's memories return. Oh, of Marie Moria-san? Yes, Marie is my friend, and he erased her existence. That old man, known as the headmaster? Having everyone forget about her isn't such a bad thing. Even if all the people in school forget about her, at least he'd want her family to remember her, right? But because he's ruthless, he snatched away memories even from her parents. Right? Isn't that terrible? What in the world is this camera? It's equipment from our class, you see. It can't be fooled by trickery of any kind. It shows the truth. Earlier, when I looked at her name tag, it was as if it was washed out by rain and I couldn't read it. But now I could read it faintly. Her class was B. No, I could read Classroom 13 written there. Certainly there were many classes and students in the school, but I didn't think there was any grade with the Classroom 13. At least for humans, that is. Classroom 13, perhaps it's the classroom where the yokai live in the school? Speaking of that classroom's equipment, it makes sense something with the mysterious power would come from there. You can imagine it, can't you? To him, that camera is an inconvenience, because it would release the human he ate, you see? He didn't just eat her humanity, but her existence. Taking a picture with that camera, bringing back her existence. It's the same as taking the food out of him. Not just her meat and bones, but to even eat her very existence? What a terrifying yokai. Why, there's times that's convenient. Among the classmates coming in and out of the newspaper club, you were in the same class as Marie. What made you find that camera? Just as the headmaster said. That camera had been carefully sealed away, and he said it wasn't something humans could simply find. Makes sense. This Higanbana person wanted revenge for her friend, removed the seal on the mysterious camera, and allowed me to find it. Exactly right. I gave you that camera. Would she let me keep it, I wonder? And as if to confirm it, she giggled again. Even though I couldn't escape that alley no matter how far I walked, when I walked with Higanbana, we soon came to an intersection bustling with people. When the cars weren't coming and going, there were people quickly headed to their homes. Surely this was the human world. Thank you. Now that you've taken me this far, I should be fine. Oh? You use the person who saves your life like a guidepost, and then after you say that, after that you say, I'm fine, goodbye? How cruel. Well, you're saying you need something in return? I was a little worried. Surely she may have saved my life, yet the thought of what a yokai like her would want in exchange scared me. If that's true, I would have killed you. For example, taking off one of your arms wouldn't be so bad, would it? I got goosebumps. If those words came from a human, they would just be a joke, but since they came from the mouth of Higanbana, a yokai, they transformed into the most terrifying of words. Oh, I'm joking. I'm joking. Wonder if you'd at least treat your savior to a cup of coffee? Or a cup of tea? I just saw cup of and assumed coffee. Well, I don't really have any money. Oh, you poor guy. Let's have some tea at your place. Oh yeah, you're interested in the camera, aren't you? I'd like to see the photo albums you've taken with it. That's what I want in return. My albums, you say? They're truly worthless. They're filled with pictures from around the neighborhood. I don't want to take a yokai home. Oh shoot. If I think like this, she'll just read my thoughts. But if I refuse, she'll probably tear off one of my arms. When she said I was her friend, I didn't share the sentiment, but I was too scared to displease her. After all, compared to losing an arm, letting her see my albums is no big deal. With that kind of attitude, I could learn to like you. Well, let's be honest. It's been a long time since I've been outside the school. I'm really enjoying this. As if she knew where my house was, she started heading off on her own. But with the way she walked, looking like she was having fun, I couldn't help but think I had a new, albeit somewhat overbearing friend. Having something like a yokai for a friend, isn't that kind of cool? Come on, man. You're friends with a demon. Come on. It's super risky, but I guess it's kind of cool. Then being scared of her and whatnot would be rude. After all, she saved me, although my albums are nothing to be bragging about. I should at least let her see them. Perhaps she might even show me some ghost photos I didn't notice before. I strained to think positively as I followed after Higanbana in my confused state. My house was in a relatively unremarkable neighborhood. This is turning out surprisingly well considering how badly the other story went, but hey, I guess I don't think every encounter with spirits needs to end in death. Let's see how this goes. Are they just letting my guard down for Higanbana to murder him? A tiny plot for a garden and a garage. It's 2 stories high, but not particularly spacious. The house was empty. My mother was out running errands. Likely. All it would have taken was one more mistake today and I might not have ever come home. Let's say even though I've returned home with a yokai, I'm glad to pass under that familiar entryway unharmed. Higanbana stopped before the entrance, and after looking at the house, she stared at my back. Could she be so modest I have to say, please come in, I wonder? Thinking as much, I said, come in? Well, that's what coming home feels like. I feel a strange relief from you. I think almost everyone would feel that way after coming home. A school yokai, since home is so nearby, that coming home emotion is something I don't really get. Wait, where does school yokai live? Isn't it obvious? Our home is the school. Although I suppose it's different than home in that sense, you could say. Home means somewhere safe and peaceful, right? For us, it's better to say it's just a house, not a home. Even though you're a school yokai, that school isn't safe. I'm not always hunting. If I'm not always hunting, I'm being hunted. That's probably fairly different than a peaceful household, wouldn't you say? In fact, school is probably the same for the rest of you. I'm not always hunting, I'm being hunted. What she was talking about wasn't just limited to the world of yokai. The rule even applied to the rest of us who spent our days in the classroom. You're either teaching, or you're desperately preparing for an exam. There wasn't a class or grade that didn't have bullying. Basically, no matter how much we try to hide it, it's an undeniable social phenomenon. That's what we're going with. Okay. If the sun rises, shadows must take shape. Where the sun sets, if there is warmth, and where it doesn't, an unpleasant cold takes hold. As long as the sun is shining, I think everyone would want to be there. At a school, really? Even if they had to chase its shadow, they'd try to make that sunny place their own. The metaphor. That's what it is. In other words, that game of musical chairs we played so much in nursery school, at the end of the day, we didn't learn the valuable lesson it was teaching us. Because if we're on the bullied side, we'll always be looking for our chance to switch to the bullying side. It seemed like nothing was different from Higanbana and the others in the yokai world. As humans, if we return home to our families, we can at least relax and feel safe until the sun rises. The yokai don't have that. Maybe this Higanbana yokai was yearning to embrace what it means to return home. After all, didn't she want to come home with me? Even though she did those frightful things before my eyes moments ago, for some reason, I somewhat understand her. This is the first time I'd ever invited someone over for tea. All I could do was prepare 2 mugs and stir up some hot cocoa. Tea! Tea, you son of a bitch! Okay. I assume tea is coffee because I'm reading. I don't know what his excuse is when someone comes over for tea and you prepare them hot chocolate. I mean, if you want to get eaten by a demon, I guess you can feed them hot chocolate instead of actual tea. I went up to my room upstairs holding the mugs. If this had been the seemingly British gentleman, he'd be fucked here. He serves them hot chocolate, and he's just like, "This is the most vile tea I've ever had," and then he eats you. How dare you insult tea? May as well offer him coffee. I went up to my room upstairs holding the mugs. Higanbana was quietly sitting on a cushion on the floor, waiting patiently for my return. So this is your nest? Well, I don't know what you mean by nest, but I suppose you could say so. As if she were fascinated, Higanbana looked here and there, taking in her surroundings. The overwhelming reality was that there was a beautiful girl who looked like a French doll in the middle of my room. That uncomfortable feeling alone made me feel like my room was a different place. I want to look at your albums. You show them to me. Oh, there's nothing special in there, but if you don't mind that. I carefully pulled out a few albums filled with pictures from the bookshelf and handed them to her. Emotionlessly, she began flipping through the pages, seemingly without interest. Since her expression looked so indifferent, I was a bit scared I might have been boring her. Oh, it's nothing like that. Non-school scenery interests me, and my face is like this by nature. I'm not bored or anything. There's no need for any strange concerns, you see. Again, I didn't speak, but she answered my thoughts, and I stared at her. If I thought too much, she might read my mind and get upset. So I took out the camera from my bag. If I at least pretended to do some maintenance, then I can kill some time. A man and woman sharing the same room, each quietly handling their own work. Somehow it's a laughably awkward and yet strange scene. Sometimes I'd steal a glimpse at her. Expressionless, she literally looked over the photos. Mechanically, she'd turn the page at the same time every time. With the way she read, it felt like I was watching the mechanism of a mechanical doll at work. She might have said she wasn't bored, and yet, as she looked at my pictures, I was a tad interested in what an ethereal being's thoughts would be. I thought, as if in response, she spoke. I think the photos in these albums are arranged chronologically, because how your interests move with time, I find
learning these things to be extremely interesting. Are you saying by following what I photograph and when, you can read my emotions? That's about right. Looking at these, it seems you're cropping the subjects of your photos. You're really cropping your hand out of the picture. Oof. Looking at these, I can tell your photos. You took photos of your thumb. It's quite amusing. Having my work looked at by someone else is quite a bit embarrassing. What made you interested in photography? In your early albums, they seem somewhat aggressive and harsh. It means those early photos do appeal to me, however. At least taking her eyes off the album, she looked at me. The gaze seemed mischievous somehow, and she looked at me as if reading the albums. Long ago, I was falsely accused. At the time I saw the culprit, I saw the truth, and even though I told the truth, my teacher wouldn't believe me. And you thought, if only I had a picture of the truth, right? Of course, you still had a lot of resentment back then, so your first photos are cruel ones now. They look so absolutely vicious. I think if I touched them, they'd split my fingers in half. As she judged the photos cruel, 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 I couldn't possibly link that word to them. They all showed completely ordinary, everyday images. Perhaps there's something there that only someone who isn't human can see, and yet it was like she said. I remembered every photograph. In other words, looking at the photos meant I could remember the emotion I felt when I took them. And then I knew. From the moment I took a camera in my hands, from that day on, my eyes were lit with a rage seeking to prove my innocence. However, my incident had long since been decided in a false accusation. I had been decided as the culprit, and I couldn't overturn the verdict of what took place in the science prep room, but it might have been to expose future injustices. I could at least reveal them. I thought I could at least then rid myself of that vexing feeling caused by my false accusation. I see. Your photos keep changing. Gradually they get gentler, calmer, mediocre, dull, boring. Why did your feelings change like that? Well, probably... Doesn't it mean I've calmed down since then? In the end, there was nothing I could do after the incident was done and over with. It was so painful I even soaked my pillows in tears, but there was nothing I could do anymore. People's grudges aren't frozen in eternal ice. Sometimes it eventually begins to melt away. Eventually, I began to take more interesting things. My camera. Oh, how interesting. You used cameras to seal your cruel photographs away for eternity, suggesting that eventually time dissolves the hatred away. Surely you said something happened to you long ago too, right, Higanbana-san? Fading is also beautiful. Seems you're saying that not letting photographs fade away with... or letting things fade with photographs is cruel? That's right. Since you didn't leave it in the photos, you were able to resolve your self-resentment over time. With that in mind, by taking photos, by capturing the cruel reality, you let those feelings remain for eternity. What an interesting contradiction, don't you think? For some reason, I feel you're condemning me. She's not wrong. He's not wrong. I'm intentionally making a distinction between what's alright to forget and what must not be forgotten. Surely that incident gave me sorrow, and I haven't really forgotten it, but thinking I'd always remember it with resentment, well, I had no choice. Quickly forgetting it, changing my outlook, and creating a positive lifestyle, I thought that was the much better route to take. How boring. Higanbana shrugged with a smile. She clearly looked like she was making a mockery, but as for what she was mocking, I didn't understand. When you first took your camera, like sharpening a razor, you were a boy who slashed everything he touched. That side of you interests me. Surely she wasn't praising me. Well, after that incident, I think I started to get fed up with all sorts of things. I wonder, how did that resentment go away? As I keep saying, in time it resolved itself. Before I knew it, I didn't care about it anymore? How? Why did it no longer matter? Did you just forget? Holding an album, Higanbana slowly stood up, and spreading the page before me, she called my attention to a group of unremarkable photos. No, it was as if she was about to tear the album apart. She showed me the threshold between pages and tore it in half. Up until this page, we have lingering photos smeared with resentment. And from here on, we have the dull, daydreaming photos. What was in these pages, I wonder? Did you forget? Ooh, the first actual laughter there, nice. I could feel the weight of Higanbana's laughter piling up, layer upon layer. I could hear my own scream from having my album torn apart among them. It felt like a reverberation, not unlike someone tolling the bells in a temple for fun. For some reason, my body shook, and it felt like I was seeing the whole room from underwater as my vision blurred. Even within that blurred reality, her form unaltered, she stood with grace and spoke to me. No, ridiculed me. Even after you howled with such rage, how could you forget? There's no way you could forget. How did you forget? Well, if you don't look at your own photos, how will you remember? Thud. As she opened it from the album she thrust at me, countless photos spilled out. I couldn't tell from which pages they fell from, even though she wasn't swinging it around the album she held. It was as if a spring were gushing forth. Flip, flip, flip. The photos spilled from one another from pages unknown. Flip, 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 flip. Just like a leak would make a puddle of water on the floor. It was as if the photos began to make their own pool. These photos, with a single glance, I knew what they were. Of course, none of these photos were things I had taken photos of. I mean, the photos I did take, I remember every single one. If I didn't remember them, then they weren't my photos. While Higanbana sneered at me, she kept spilling more photos from the album. You still not remember? She muttered with an ominous smile. How painful for you. If you had faults, no matter the number, you came to accept them, didn't you? You might not remember, but the culprit was right before your eyes, and yet, when you were framed, didn't it boil in your guts in frustration? All the while, you were hatefully, painfully, and bitterly thinking to release that rage by using your camera as a weapon, didn't you? And then what did you do? What do you mean, I didn't do anything. Oh, didn't you tell the headmaster you'd choose truth over peace? Behold the truth overflowing right here. Take a look with your own eyes. Stir the memories within you. Go on. Higanbana thrust her hands in the pool of photographs stretching around her feet. She tossed them up as if she were splashing water at me. I was afraid of something. I couldn't look directly at the photos. What is he hiding? Did he take indecent photos of her? Did he murder her? What's going on? Are we exposing a murder? But those photos couldn't have been mine. I mean, I don't remember them. They have nothing to do with me. And yet I was afraid to look at them. After all, no one remembered Marie Moria in that photo. Even though she existed, no one remembered her. But whenever anyone like me or Marie Moria's mother saw the photo they remembered, it brought back that which should not exist. Regardless of already being in front of my eyes, I don't remember these photos, so they have nothing to do with me. I don't remember, so I've got nothing to do with them. Hate, pain, and bitterness. Do you remember now what you did? If you won't dispel your denial, how do you intend to rid yourself of that resentment, I wonder? That's right, you wanted revenge against the girl who framed you. In that science prep room in front of your very eyes. Do you remember the girl who knocked down the human dummy? I remember being bitter. Girls ran away and knocked the dummy's shoulder. It fell over. Girls and mine eyes met. Her face, do you remember? I don't. Maybe because it's sunk into my subconscious. Maybe, like Marie Moria, it's something that cannot be remembered. I don't know anymore. But I'm sure our eyes met in that science prep room. But when she made a face as if to say, oh shoot. In other words, from the outset, she understood it was her fault. And yet, how dare she shamelessly say I'm the one who did it. And yet, it was so frustrating, so frustrating. Over and over, I sunk my teeth into my blanket, I soaked my pillow in tears, and yet I can't remember. It can't be, why can't I remember? She's dead. She's dead? Does that mean she's dead? I mean, that's what we were suspecting, right? We're uncovering a murder? I had hated her so much, and yet I can't even remember. How did I forget her face? No, just her face. Her name was... Wasn't she a girl from my class? Was she... Her name was... I can't remember. Did I forget? Can I not just remember? Or maybe it's just like the way Marie Moria was forgotten. She was erased from my memory. I don't know. Littered around my feet, the unknown photos surrounded me, mocking me. I mustn't look. I mustn't look. I mean, they're nothing but photos I've stupidly forgotten, aren't they? I'm sure she wants you to remember who she is, too. Her name is Yoko Numata. Come on, you remember now, don't you? Come on. Come on. When I heard the name Yoko Numata, in the exact same way Marie Moria's mother had done so, I screamed. That was it, that name. That was her name.
Just hearing that name brought back the rage from that day. Even though the name etched so much hate in my heart, how could I have forgotten it until now? That's right, it's that bastard. That weird old man, the headmaster. It's because he completely erased the name and memory of Yoko Numata from the world. Does that mean she's one of his victims? No, that's not it. No. This pain hollowing my heart, my guilty conscience. I mustn't remember. I mustn't remember. Goddamn, a lot of killers in this school. Yoko was always having fun, so you thought. If you always kept an eye on her, surely she'd do something else like before. And once again, she'd probably pass the blame on to someone else. You thought to seize that opportunity, expose her, and indirectly restore your good name, right? But even that was deceitful. With your mind overflowing with hate, there was no room for such a noble goal. What you wanted wasn't to clear your name. You only wanted revenge, to hurt her. You began to stalk her. You thought if you monitored her closely enough, surely a similar incident would happen again. That's how it started, right? But no convenient new incidents occurred. As you continued to persistently stalk her, you started getting irritated, because the event you were expecting wasn't happening. Rage began bubbling inside you with no place to go. And because of the way you were, even the evils you expected to commit became far more minute. Or to commit became even far more minute and subtle. Because the incident seemed to eat up your time, even simple mistakes in her day began to expand like a foot of a mountain as the targets of your photographs. And one day you realized it. You were taking photos of those minute details, and those were more than enough to catch her and take your revenge. With just that malicious mindset, stalking her would be revenge enough. As you secretly took pictures of her daily mistakes, you'd secretly send them to her. And their contents were completely worthless. You continued framing blurred photos of her daily routine. But to her it came as a huge shock. 24 hours a day as someone was watching her. The fear that someone might be photographing her caused an unfathomable impact on her. Around that time, by chance, she had some trouble with her close group of friends and grew estranged. By chance, she also had a lot of enemies, you see. With no one to go to, there were a few she didn't suspect of secretly taking photos of her. You recognized the time was right, and you relentlessly followed her, piling up secret photos. You made humorous dramatizations of her photos, pretending it was a news or a scoop to get the class to look at them. At their cruel age, your classmates thought this was amusing. Humans love that sort of thing, really. They love ganging up on a weakling. You'd think, normally around that time, the girls would get together and save her, but she was truly unlucky because she had isolated herself from that group. Truly unfortunate. And not having a friend in school was crueler than being cast into a desert without water to drink. It might be like casting a suicide, are we going with? It might be like being cast into a sea of sharks without a little life raft. With no distinction between men or women, the entire class picked her as their target. It was completely different than your original plan for revenge, and it greatly exceeded your expectations in its success. Since you followed after her holding your camera, some of your classmates might have known you were the culprit, but because they were enjoying it, they protected you. Ironically, even the girls who agreed with her story that when you were framed confessed that you were not the culprit. What a wonderful feeling it must have been. You were cleared of vexing false accusations, and on top of that, you also had your revenge. Oh, I don't think that's quite right. On top of that, you continued your revenge. Makes more sense, I think. Because if you were to clear a name, the goal was clear, and it had to end. But that revenge had no clear goal nor end. You continued chasing her for your amusement. And since you had no end in sight, the result was inevitable. In the end, with no one to turn to, she took everything you'd done and wanted to end her life. Suicide. Her suicide had one message she wanted to send, in revenge to the culprit who drove her to it. Unpleasant note. Your bullying target went and killed herself. Truly unpleasant note. And here you'd been so fortunate. Saying you want to die means your soul has been ruined, right? Among our class, there are school yokai who find that a delicacy, you see. He enticed her and drove her to kill herself, and with a slurp, ate her up. Yokai eating people and the like, unbelievable, isn't it? It should be. After all, when people suddenly go missing like that, it'd be a big deal. But there's nothing reported in the newspapers or on TV like that, so it can't be true. If we caused a riot among you humans, it would be extremely bothersome. Humans would become afraid, they wouldn't come to school, and we couldn't feed, right? So when we school yokai eat humans, we also eat memories of their existence from the entire world. Just like Marie and Yoko, no?
We erase them as if they never existed from the beginning. There aren't many yokai with this terrifying power. In our school, there's only one. He's the headmaster. And when the time comes for us to harvest a human soul, we give some of that soul to the headmaster, who wipes the pitiful sacrifice's memory of the existence from the world. Since he's a bit of a senile old fool, because of his power, he's remained established as first rank among the school yokai order. If he didn't have that power, I would have torn him limb from limb and taken this seat myself. More and more, the headmaster is losing his ability to hunt. He has us hunt, and he can't eat without skimming off the top of our prey. A pitiful creature. But because of that, I erased her. That's right. If she had normally committed suicide, it would have been a big deal, and you and the school might have been investigated by the police. But you're lucky. She fell prey to a school yokai, and it was as if the suicide never happened. That's how you suddenly forgot your rage. That's how those completely blurred, stupid photos you took and never noticed came to be, you see? Why did you give me this camera? I had two reasons. The camera has the power to take down the headmaster. I entrusted it to you and had you take pictures here and there. I wanted you to reveal his forgotten victims that surround you. You restored Maria's memory to her mother, and in her confusion, her soul seemed like it would suit my taste. I wonder if she has perhaps flipped over the veranda and died of an accident somehow. If she committed suicide in her confusion, it wouldn't be thought of as the work of a yokai. There's no need to give any of her to the headmaster. I can wholly devour her delicious soul. The truth was, I wanted you to take as many more photos here and there around the class as you see. I wanted you to know just how many in your age group have become forgotten sacrifices. It was too late. I couldn't doubt it anymore. Higanbana had no girl's heart to make me think of a refined French doll at all. She pretended to be that, and she was cruel and merciless. Her laughter, it felt like cruel innocence from a child enjoying itself after picking up a bug and plucking its legs off one by one. But that's the fun, isn't it? I mean, not the bug, the egg, not the plucking limbs off one by one of the bug. The fun of having this villain, right? The other goal I wanted? Give my friend a chance, you see. Friend? Chance? Now that you've answered it, didn't Higanbana say Maria Moria was her friend? Doesn't that mean indirectly she'd resent me for driving her mother to her death? Not Marie. Yoko. Oh dear. But somehow I understood. Everything Higanbana said until now was all a ruse. From the very beginning, I was her prey. She has violently stirred up my sin. That I went too far in my own revenge and drove Yoko to suicide. So to Higanbana, I'm... Yes, no soul seems more delicious than yours. I thought to eat you right away, you know. But just before that, the headmaster erased the memory of Yoko. He erased your consciousness of your sin from within. Oh, now it's time. She's cooking him up. She's been frying him this whole time. That's why they're going home. It was as if your ripe soul was left out too long and turned to stale fruit. The fact I was just a step from devouring you and forced to wait vexed me for ages. I wanted to add something to your soul for flavor. I waited so long to have a chance to eat you again like this, you see? Understand? She put her slender white fingers to her chin, and then in terror my legs caved in. In the middle of my messy room, I fell backwards into the sea of photographs. Well, come on then, Yoko. Now's the time for revenge. How long and how much have you suffered in sorrow? Teach him a lesson, because this is your only single chance in eternity to do so. There's a shadow behind Higanbana. A mushy, warped silhouette. Oh, is she trying to make her friend Yoko get the headmaster powers, or what? It was as if it were a shadow that detested the brightness and hid behind her back. The shadow slimily grew arms, using Higanbana's shoulders to steady herself, and it revealed its form. I remember. That's right, Yoko Numata looked like this. I wonder what in the world kind of body she must have met her end with. The clothes that clung to her were like the ones I'd seen countless times at school before. They were like worn-out rags, dirty, worn out, and quite miserable rags. Miyako.
Numata-san? Pure white like candle wax. Just like her worn-out clothes, her skin hung loosely in the same way. Now that I remembered her when she was alive, her ugliness was beyond pitiful. Appearing with such an atrocious body, her figure might have represented my sins. The more I thought, that pitiful atrocity gouged my heart. Hey, Yoko, you said you wanted to cross into death? In exchange for your life, you said you wanted to have revenge on the ringleader. Despite the ruthlessness of the yokai who invited you to die, this dancing Higanbana is deeply compassionate. I've expressly brought you back and given you the chance. How about some gratitude for this kindness? Her body might have been rotting or frozen. It was like tainted meat left in their fridge, an extremely horrible thing. She just stood there trembling painfully, struggling even to speak. What she was trying to say, those quivering eyes said it all. No, Miyaku did to me. She moved to touch me, and with each step she walked, at the same time I retreated backwards on the ground. Oh, good night, my friend. I wonder what's the matter, Takeshi no Miyaku. It's not entirely your fault, is it? If Yoko hadn't cowardly worked to frame you, none of this would have happened in the first place. Basically, Yoko's suffering for the consequences of her actions. Passing your sins to another invites more sin, and she's paying the price. I wonder if Nonomiya-kun needs to point out the one-sidedness. Oh, you have the right to speak. You have the right to remain silent. When humans die, you see they're powerless. If they die, they're nothing. Humans that continue to live are much stronger. They must continue to live. And humans that frivolously part with their lives naturally, well, will suck their bones dry. In my deep compassion, I brought her back. Yoko, in her powerless deceased state, in her distress, she frivolously gave up her right to fight to the bitter end when she threw her life away. I've given her that chance of revenge. But now she can reveal herself once again before the still-living Takeshi Nonomiya-kun. Yoko, how about you tell him what kind of hell souls can crawl around in after they've been sucked dry? You don't want to go back, do you? But how about fulfilling that revenge? After you take his soul, I'll let you have a bit of it. After that, you'll never have to return to that hell again. And as my servant, I'll treat you, and feed you fairly. Sounds good, doesn't it? If you think about it, it's much better than returning to that cold, cold, freezing hell, isn't it? Well, Yoko, take Nonomiya-kun's life. Nonomiya-kun, if you want to live a long life, send Yoko back to the hell she came from. At a glance, Yoko's body might have seemed unpleasant, but hers was a form that shouldn't have been able to come back to life. Strangling your opponent to death isn't as hard as Nonomiya-kun thinks it is. At any rate, with the same bitterness you had, she chose a simple suicide. You showed me the power of continuing to live through revenge. For those who choose death, there's no dignity, no second chance, nothing. The ones that survive are the right ones. Well, how about you take Yoko's neck in your hand, twist it like a stuck lid on a jar of jam? That'll be the end of Yoko. She'll plunge back to hell again. If you don't want that, Yoko. Before that happens, snap Nonomiya-kun's neck. Because as you are now, I've granted you the power to do as much. Higanbana stirred us up like so, and in her elegance note, this time I knew, she was bursting with giggles of laughter from which there was no greater evil. It was like Numata-san and I both understood Higanbana's laughter at the same time, and slowly we inched towards one another. As Higanbana-san said, for Numata-san to return to hell must be a horrifyingly cruel thing. Her body in that pitiful state, it gave a graphic detail of the terrors of that hell. If she kills me, Higanbana promised she wouldn't have to go back to that hell. But even so, the fact that I was the ringleader who drove her to suicide probably made her want to kill me 10 billion times over. It was the same for me, however. She'd falsely accused me, and I'd tasted a bitterness that I couldn't lose to her rage and sadness from taking her own life. How can I say we felt the same pain? I just got yelled at by a teacher, but she was bullied by the whole class. Her pain was completely different. The pain I felt just drove me to burn with rage, but it didn't lead me to taking my own life. But her pain couldn't be dissuaded. What if I'm wrong? What should I have done? Does that mean I should have just been content with crying myself to sleep at night? Because of those accusations? No, that's not it at all. It comes around, an eye for an eye. Evil for evil. You merely had your revenge. And as a result, she merely chose to take her own life.
Allowing their own deaths is the most terribly wretched way humans can admit defeat. There's no need to feel sorry for her. You have the justifiable right to send that weakling who lacked the strength to continue living back to hell with your own hands. I don't know what you're trying to say, Higanbana-san. Do you want me to take revenge for Numata? Or do you want me to kill her? It makes no sense. Either is fine. The hell do you mean by that? If you're killed, it's fine, and if you counterattack to send that corpse once again back to Hades, well, that's fun too. Either is fine. It's amusing, you see. It's quite boring being a school yokai, that is, so I find pitting students against each other makes me the happiest. I love bullying and fighting, you see. Judging by watching you two glare at each other like that, it's so exciting. I get goosebumps all over. You know what that feels like, I wonder? Well, kill each other, you two. I don't care who wins. Bully and be bullied. What a pleasant school life. Numata-san pained to speak. Now I no longer felt fear towards her miserable body, I only felt pity. Why did you do so many horrible things? You did it to me first. That day in science prep room, you knocked over that anatomy dummy, didn't you? You should know. Even then, you lied. Yes, I lied. By taking your revenge so far, did I really do such a bad thing? Her expression showed no anger, just pitiable sorrow. And I must have had the same expression. It was like she was saying, I really had my share of pain, but it wasn't enough. I wanted her to kill herself. I would have been satisfied with just getting even. However, those breaks didn't work, and before I knew it, it escalated out of control. My revenge grew far beyond my initial framing, and perhaps if I had just made it a just revenge, perhaps even if I'd been allowed just the right amount of revenge, what I did went beyond that. There was no excuse, no words to escape my sin. Perhaps I was wrong. I certainly hated you. You are probably aware I hated you, but even so, I didn't intend to kill you. I didn't intend to have my revenge until you died, or anything like that. After I thought it was enough, I would have stopped. That's all. I just got caught up in the atmosphere of the class. It escalated out of control. That's right. There's even a limit to how much you can persistently stalk someone around after taking revenge for being falsely accused, apparently. Sure, isn't your crime obvious by now? You went too far. You drove her to death. Nonomiya-kun killed Yoko Numata. Higanbana's cackles of wicked laughter challenged me to respond. However, it seemed she had a point, so I said nothing in return. Then Numata-san faced Higanbana and spoke. So, if I didn't do what I did, Nonomiya-kun wouldn't have done it. In the end, I can't say he's wrong. Then in the end, do you think you're paying for your own mistakes? In the end, do you think being trapped for eternity in that hell suits you? You want to go back there once again, I wonder? Numata-san shivered as she wrapped herself with both arms. It might have been in fear, or it might have been just from the memory of the cold coming back to her. I couldn't tell. The only thing I could tell was her own terror of being dropped into hell. We equally have our own sins. Numata's was the crime of framing me, and I have the crime of driving her to death. Not true. I hadn't lied. Yeah, we're both bad people. Since there are hells for bad people like us, we should both fall into them. But you've frozen in that hell long enough. This time it's my turn to fall. Because Numata-san, right here, you deserve to have your revenge on me right now. We are probably at a distance closer than the best of friends. We were close enough we could each embrace one another, or we could each strangle one another. Higanbana was egging us on to strangle each other, but we didn't. It must have terribly bored her. So Higanbana made fools of us and ridiculed us. If we each do nothing like this, Numata's time on Earth will run out, and she'll plummet back to burn in hell. I realized the signs that her body's power was beginning to dissipate. At this rate, even if she doesn't take her revenge, she'll forever lose her chance. And at that moment, I had the advantage. She was afraid. By standing still and appealing to what emotions she has within her, I could safely remain alive, and because of that, I couldn't allow myself to remain silent. I had to speak. If I thought without the aid of some school yokai mischief, we wouldn't be able to meet again. We wouldn't have had a chance to negotiate like this again. I couldn't let a miracle pass me by. Mata-san, I'm sorry. What I did to you was painful, however, it was all because I did such devious things to get even. If my memory of you hadn't been erased, I think I would have certainly lived to regret it. But my memory was erased, and until today I've lived a peaceful life. Being able to remember, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity. I'll say it again. Mata, I'm truly sorry. No, Miyaku. I'm sorry. I got swept up in the mood and did that. I didn't think what I did would hurt you. Sorry. I'm the one who's wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I killed you. You have the right to kill me. Kill me. There's no need for you to go to hell alone. Miyaku, you didn't kill anyone, you see? After all, I died because my heart wasn't strong enough. Before dying, there was probably a lot of alternatives, such as turning to someone for help, all kinds of things. Even though you were in pain, Nonomiya-kun, you didn't think of suicide. Choosing to die, knowing the depth and sadness of your sin, after you die, you realize it. Even so, I'm responsible for driving you there. It's my fault. As if she were about to vomit, thinking we were putting on a farce, Higanbana clicked her tongue. You guys, what did I say earlier? Nonomiya-kun? Yoko? Why don't you curse each other? Bully and bullied. Do or don't? Those are the laws of school, aren't they? Why are you apologizing to each other? Sure, it's kind of funny, but it's boring. Higanbana-san, I'll return to hell like this. Numata-san, are you really alright with that, Yoko? After returning to this world and once again coming to remember the warmth of the sunlight, are you saying you want to go back to that hell? Please stop pretending. Look, it's almost time. If you quickly strangle his neck, I'll prevent you from lapsing back into that hell. Fine with it. I framed him. Nonomiya took his revenge. And when I take revenge for that, Nonomiya-kun will take his revenge on me again. I want it to end. We didn't come to school to be bullied and be bullied. I might have caused Nonomiya more trouble as a result, but that day running around the science room, all my friends were enjoying themselves. I truly had fun. Studying, playing, making friends. That's why we came to the school. It wasn't to deceive or hurt. Hurting and hurting back. If it makes a chain like that, let it end with me, Headmaster. Take me from everyone's memories, please. Let me rest. Too bad, Higanbana-kun. It seems revenge isn't honey needed to stir the dead from their sleep. Oh, Headmaster. When did you arrive? But the Headmaster was in the room before anyone noticed, and he gently placed his hand on Numata-san's shoulder. You will return to hell, and you will be forgotten by everyone. In exchange, I'll put everything to rest as you forget even the chill of your shivers. Please. If everyone forgets and rests easy, the chain of hate will end. She was already pained just by standing up by herself. Something might have been protecting her from falling to her knees. I realized while she stood at the same time she was losing her power to remain in this world. Numata, please forgive me. If you'll forgive me. I forgive you. For what you did that day, I forgive you. Please, somehow, please forgive me. Thank you. Now, without regrets, I can say goodbye. Thank you, Higanbana-san. Thank you? Why were you thanking me? I might have been brought back to foolishly take my revenge, but thanks to you, I was able to apologize to Nonomiya-kun. I was also able to apologize to Numata-san. What's that? How boring. How dull. How stupid. This is the first time I'd seen Higanbana so upset. She was even thrashing her elegant hair around in anger. Well, Numata-kun, it's about time to say goodbyes. The Headmaster gently informed her time was at an end. Damn it, I can't tell who's talking. Those words were truly spoken in compassion, because at the very end of it all, he was giving her the chance to do something. That last chance, Numata-san spent it, reaching out her right hand to me. Numata-san? Nonomiya-kun. Let's shake hands. Alright. I firmly grasped her snow-white and ice-cold hand. Perhaps I was too strong, or perhaps my hand was too warm, but after her expression showed a moment of pain, in the end she showed me a smiling face. Why'd I have to go and tell such a lie, I wonder? I was such a fool. Maybe I wanted to see what she would do. Even though I just wanted a little conflict, I've caused such pain. I was truly a fool. I'm sorry. Thank you. And goodbye. Those were the last three things Numata left behind. The Headmaster finally adjusted his top hat that hung over his brow and cleared his throat. Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to clean up Higanbana-kun's mischief. However, Nonomiya-kun, you alone will have your memories spared. Or would you rather I erase those memories again, perhaps? No. Our crimes are the same, so we should be allowed the same. prove it, I'll never forget her as long as I live. I'll make sure the same mistakes aren't made again. Oh, very well. I'll excuse myself. Poop. Pops out of existence. Nice. He's just poof, gone. Headmaster also disintegrated into the air with his. Dude, that guy just, like, his sprite got deleted. They didn't have him fade out. He just poof, gone. After that, Higanbana and I were all who remained. I could tell Higanbana couldn't hide how upset she was at this unimaginable development. How dull, how lame. Lame. Why did it have to turn out like this? How uninteresting, how dull. Congratulations on staying alive, Nanamiya-kun. How does it feel to complete your revenge uninjured, I wonder? There was no revenge or anything of the sort. We both forgave each other. That's all. Higanbana-san, while you're enjoying your tea in my house, you should show a little respect. Oh my, do you intend to suggest I'm going to remain idle? We're not done yet. Do you suggest that I, the dancing Higanbana of the third rank seat of the school yokai, who has let you have this much of her time, isn't going to do any harvesting? Are you kidding me? Could I please ask you, cease underestimating? I wonder, Nanamiya-kun? With her back to the window, Higanbana was infected with the violet darkness of the night, and aside from the bright red lights glaring from her eyes, everything else turned pitch black. I could hear the room creak and bend with her rage. Well, it's over. I'm probably gonna get killed in this place. But I don't care. I'll rest alongside Numata-san in that freezing hell. I won't leave her to face that hell by herself. You might be quite a tricky human. What a fool to speak so lightly of hell. You don't even know the fear of that world of solitude. No one will come greet you there, you see. People you don't know will come to play when they want and leave when they want. They'll never come to play with you again. I was all alone in that cold, lonely infirmary. Saying that kind of hell isn't quite scary at all. You're quite an entertaining individual, Nanamiya-kun. It's totally different than the person you're expecting. But I've got a different idea. Like I said, you're truly amusing. Yoko was unappealing? Well, I'll make you my doll. And if you want to spend eternity forever, for whenever I feel like playing with you, then I can send you into eternal darkness where you can wait and sing. There was an explosive crash as the glass window behind Higanbana's back burst to pieces. The sharpened fragments turned into transparent knives and went directly for my throat. I had a feeling they were going to pierce into me and I'd die. At the same time, a strong force pulled me down from the nape of my neck from behind. If it hadn't happened, those glass fragments would have probably cut me to bits. Who grabbed my shirt? They turned around, even though it was the first time I met her. Somehow I was surprised I knew her face. Why, isn't it Marie? How crude of you to barge in on someone else's manhunt. Huh? You look mad. Your face looks like it's going to ruin that cute smile of yours for at least a week, you know. Higanbana-san. Both problems have been resolved. This isn't the time for us yokai to intervene. Both problems? Who started the sinning? The chicken or the egg? The cycle of hatred can't be stopped. Bullying leads to more bullying. And the school of upperclassmen who bully underclassmen will inherit sadness for eternity. Just what are you suggesting? Two people in that cycle exchanging a strange farewell with strange expressions are going to accomplish anyway. Hilarious. I gave Yoko her chance for revenge, just like I once gave you your chance. I was grateful at first. I was grateful you let me absolve my feelings that couldn't be erased by death alone. And yet, maybe that was my mistake. You just toy with the feelings of the dead with your cruel laughter for fun. Numata-san showed me her strength and I understood. Because now I respect her from my heart. I even remember her rage from what you did to her. Marie, you can make that expression too, can't you? You're adorable, you know. Maybe that's saying there was some value in inviting you to become the school yokai at the 8th rank. Didn't you say you were going to entertain me? Are you saying you're going to oppose me, the dancing Higanbana? Are you saying you're going to try and protect the fragile human from me? Shielding me, Moriya-san stood in front of the Higanbana, who'd a wicked smile on her face. It was very brave. Unfortunately, it looked as if an unstoppable foe stood before her. Are you Moriya-san? I'm sorry. About your mother? Oh, it's alright. The headmaster wiped my mother's memories again. It's fine now. When I brought her back the memories that you existed, that mysterious camera, I thought after the truth. I thought I was doing the right thing. Was it the right thing? I don't know. Nanamiya-kun. Being forgotten is a cruel thing, and I have compassion for all things equally. I think with that power I could destroy the chain of hatred in this world. I might linger here in this detestable body like this, but I should have been forgotten too. That's what I think now. Higanbana cast her laughter at that notion.
What? What? Are you saying the child who was strangled to death by Kanamori and tossed in a tub of feces shouldn't have had her revenge or anything of the sort, but should have meekly given up? Are you really the kind of intolerably simplistic dull child, I wonder? Yes. We gave up meekly when we took to the sweet talk of a sneering demon. We mustn't spread our hatred. We mustn't let it be passed on. We soon forget those emotions. We have to satisfy ourselves with other fun and more rewarding emotions. I'd forgotten. Yet there's still something I can do. Oh, and what's that, I wonder? You with your sneering and toying with the misfortune of others. I can stop you with your own kind of violence. Well then, come dance with Marie. I've been bored because you haven't played with me lately. I mean, if you would come play with me more often, maybe I'd finally stop these boring hunts. It is your fault. The room shook, creaked, cracked, and broke into countless blades that sought to pierce Marie. It was a whirlwind of vicious blades, a storm almost like a tornado. The spiral whirled around with Higanbana at its center. Marie violently warded it off with both her arms. Even though she appeared a delicate girl, for just a moment when she threw up her arms, they became as thick as tree trunks and she looked like a ferocious monster. However, she held up against countless malicious attacks from Higanbana. Her arms pierced and slashed countless times. Fresh blood splattered across the room. Ori-san, you're bleeding. I'm fine. More importantly, I'll make room for you. Run to the hallway. Higanbana, who'd completely broken the room in shattered, sharpened fragments, seemed to be dancing a waltz in the middle of the storm. And with that grace, it must be why she called herself the Dancing Higanbana. But could I escape into the hallway from that brutal waltz of death? Now's no time to argue. All I could do was nod in agreement. Her whirlwind picked up the pile of photos and crumpled them like leaves into bits. It might be for the best. I don't need to leave anything behind. I should lose these memories of the past one by one and make a new future for myself. Now, to the hallway! Prepared to risk her life, Marie jumped into Higanbana's waltz. Taking that as a cue, Mia ran out of the room. Ah! Fine with me. Live a long life. You mustn't waste that life Yoko-san couldn't even snatch away from you. Isn't it a bit soon for you to be my dance partner, Marie? The storm that swirled around Higanbana's waltz seized Marie. Her body was swallowed by the wind and swirled around like a leaf. She was blown into the hallway where Nonomiya fled and into his back. Tangling together, they both rolled down the hallway. Since you're like that, you're always going to be 8th rank, right, Marie? If you're not a little more refined, a bit more elegant, and completely ruthless, how do you intend to make it in high society, that is? If that's all you have, I'll get bored. If I can't at least tear out Nonomiya-kun's liver, I'll die of boredom. I know. I'll even split it with you if you want. End his life with your hand, my good friend Marie-chan. No thanks. But if you'd politely withdraw, in exchange I'll be sure to come play with you in your infirmary. Don't toy with me. You think something like that will suffice for intruding on my hunt? I'll even serve tea. The night duty room has some delicious rice cakes. Let's eat them together. Tea? Rice cake? Ha! That'd be a splendid evening tea party. But don't you think we should toast with his red blood in our cups? Looks like he broke a leg. It's time to pay the piper, Marie Nonomiya. How would you listen to me, Higanbana-san? Door, shut yourself. When Marie ordered it, the door between the room and the hallway shut with great force. After seeing that and spacing out for a moment, Higanbana rolled on the floor in laughter. What? You think a single thin door will stop me? Dancing Higanbana at the 3rd ranked seat of the school yokai before feeding on my prey? Yes. Mesa Marie, the 8th rank of the school yokai will stop you from feeding. Even though you're a yokai, you're siding with a human? Even though you don't feed on souls? If you'll die and shrivel up? Dry and shrivel up, sorry. I'll smash this flimsy door to bits for you. You cannot open this door. Door, listen to me. Mesa. You there, won't you listen to my pitiful story? Mesa. You there, won't you listen to my pitiful story? Tanking the meaning of those words, the door grew thicker, heavier, and weightier, imbued with red light. That's right, I know those words. There's been a new story going around about the 8th school yokai. It said each night in the former school building bathroom stall, a yokai called Mesa-san appears. That's how the yokai invites people inside the stall, and according to the rules, you mustn't respond to the question. You mustn't open the door. If you open it, the terrifying Mesa-san will kill you by crushing every bone in your body. if you're afraid of Mesa Mesa-san, you can't open the door. Because if you dare open it, the terrifying Mesa Mesa-san will crush your bones. Mesa Mesa-san from the ghost stories in the Mesa. Mesa-san herself was leisurely addressing the Higanbana just beyond the door. Even though she was directly under the lights in that hallway, Marie's body began blotting out everything with a deep black shadow. Looking at the shadow, one would suddenly think it was the same Marie from moments ago, but she was completely different. She looked like a real school yokai would. Her form was as terrifying as it was repulsive. But on the other side of the door, Higanbana was being held back by a solitary doorway, and with a twisted smile on her face, she reached with a hand for the doorknob. As she was about to touch the knob, she hesitated right before it met her hand. What's this? Can it be the dancing Higanbana is afraid of Mesa Mesa? If not, open the door, please. I'll face you with my true form. Marie. You can't open it. You can't open the door. No matter how many Higanbanas there are, there wouldn't be enough. If she opens the door, Mesa Mesa will crush every bone in her body. That's the Mesa Mesa story, so she can't open it. Even the dancing Higanbana gives pause to that terrifying Mesa Mesa that lies just beyond the doorway. If you didn't do that, I couldn't call you my friend, Marie. You're wonderful, truly wonderful. Oh, what real fun this is. Wondering why it doesn't happen at school. Why doesn't this happen in classrooms of the infirmary, I wonder? The enclosed atmosphere just doesn't work. I wonder why we have to play in such a confined space, you know? Higanbana, you're talking to me. You're breaking the rules of Mesa Mesa-san. According to the rules of the story, engaging in conversation with her is forbidden. Higanbana was speaking with her like that, she's already being pulled into Mesa Mesa's horror story. The way Marie's shadow was already affecting her was strange. The grotesque shadow had Marie's voice, but even Nonomiya began to forget ever so slightly that the figure standing before his eyes was actually Marie. Higanbana, if you like to play such risky games, I'll play with you. Open the door. Well, if it isn't the ordinary Marie Moria, the true power of Mesa Mesa-san, who's earned the 8th rank and everyone was too scared to steal it away from her. I want to see it. It gives me chills. I'm so glad you're my friend. I'm truly glad you offered to be my friend. I am too, and you're a friend I treasure, Higanbana-san. So let's play at school again. Oh, you're right. Confined space is too doom and gloom. You can play with me once in a while. I'll want to play in a much more wonderful place and do something more splendid with you. Being so limited in a place like this seems silly to me. Let's go home. School yokai belong at school. You're fine, let's do it. I knew you were my only friend. Higanbana's laughter and her windstorm waltz gradually grew distant, and finally it could no longer be heard. The night's silence took hold. When I realized it, Marie had returned to her original form, like the Maria Moria in the photograph. Alright now, he's survived the encounter. Damn, alright. Higanbana-san went back to school. She's a fickle one, but I don't think she'll come bother you anymore. I'd been lying on the floor. Carefully, nervously, I opened the door to my room, and when I did, I couldn't believe it. The room was silent, and it was clean like nothing had happened. Even though everything was destroyed by that raging tornado, there was no trace of it all. It was as if Higanbana and the like had never been there from the beginning. As for the mug and cushion I had put out for Higanbana, those were still there. Well, I'll also be heading back now. I'm a school yokai now, after all. Leaving the school itself is really tiring. Thank you very much. Thanks to Ryoko-san, who showed her courage to end that cycle of hatred. Thanks to you as well for showing the courage to forgive Yoko. You might not have been able to show it to her while she was alive, but even so, you weren't too late. After all, even though you're both on the border of life and death, you were able to forgive each other. Moria-san said that with a fatigued smile. It might have been fine to end it there, but I had to ask. That's right, about this camera. I'm taking it back. I decided to give Moria-san that mysterious camera that started everything. When I did, she had a troubled expression on her face. Sorry, it's not really mine. I don't know what I'd really do with it. Higanbana knows the details, but she's in a bad mood, so I don't really want to ask. So I should just get rid of it then? There's only one shot's worth of film left on here. I'll ask the headmaster what we should do. This camera's causing him trouble. I think he'd surely tell us what to do. Please do. I won't use the camera anymore, no matter what. I don't want to wake the dead if they're sleeping peacefully. Numata's now trapped in that freezing cold hell for eternity, and so I don't cause her any more suffering. I think she's fine. Are you sure? Yes?
At first she was just like you. All that she thought of it might have been the fury of revenge that set her soul on fire, but since you both forgave each other, perhaps she was able to achieve peace of mind. I think she has to be resting in peace now. Well, it would be great if that's true, but no, it's not just my opinion. She has achieved peace. I'm a yokai. I know it to be true. Having her mind revived that despicable form, could Numata really be at peace, I wonder? I wanted some kind of proof she wasn't being tortured anymore after being freed from that cycle of hatred. And when Marie clapped her hands. That's right. You said the camera still has one shot of film left, right? If we use it, I don't think it can be used for any strange mischief after that. Oh, I see. But what do we shoot? Go to the bathroom and take a picture of your own reflection. It's alright. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. And I'm sure even now she wants you to do it too. At that moment, I could hear someone chattering away outside the doorway. Mom had finally come home. Well, I'll be going. We probably won't meet again. And you'll probably forget about me. But we'll always be by your side, maybe even quietly sitting next to you. Oh, goodbye. Takeshi, are you home? Sorry for being late. I turned around to give my reply to my mom downstairs. I turned back towards Moriya-san, but she'd already disappeared. When she left, she told me to take a picture of myself in the bathroom, and no matter how you put it, taking a picture of myself with that mysterious camera was unsettling. However, Marie said to do this, and I couldn't feel any malice from her. Didn't she say she was wanting me to do that too? Did she? I went to the bathroom and brought that camera with me. In the dimly lit bathroom, I looked down the scope at my reflection in the mirror. I was a bit scared, but I took the picture with a click of the shutter. Flash. Making its mechanical noise, the final photograph developed right there. But I wasn't the only one caught on the photograph. Yoko Numata's figure was also there. But she didn't appear hideous or gory. With her usual smile on her face, her normal clothes, she looked just like she did when she was returning around the science prep room. Or running around the science prep room. I used up all the film and I've ended the uses of this eerie camera. No one knew her name, and even so, all that was left on that photograph of the bathroom mirror was a happily smiling girl next to me. There we go, she looks less like a zombie now. No chains around her. Isn't that a nice ending? The tea you made for me is really quite tasty. We're still going, really. This might be the work of a tea ceremony, yokai. Does that mean I have to snip the tail off my raccoon and put it in the kettle? A yokai tail like that would be a good one once in a while, don't you think? The moon's pure white shined down on the infirmary of eternal night. The shadows of two yokai sat within, and as they sat like friends atop a white bed in the infirmary, they drank tea and ate rice cakes. Getting to live in the infirmary, I envy you. I have to live in the bathroom. Disgusting old building's bathroom. Oh, it's because we don't choose where we die. Well, I think it suits Airhead Marie, though. You're gonna say such rude things that won't come over anymore, you know? I'm kidding, it's a joke. You're the only one who comes to play. After all, a doll that no one plays with is just a figurine. As she took a bean paste bun in her mouth, Higanbana hung her head. I thought this incident was truly typical of you, Higanbana-san. Oh, what do you mean? Although you tricked me in a really, really roundabout way. In the end, I think everything turned out as you wanted it. God, why can't you just be more straightforward? But I realized that was just your way of doing things. Oh, what are you talking about? You're making fun of me, aren't you? I'll leave. I think you're a bit cute when you put it like that. Cute? This dancing Higanbana? Are you saying the dancing Higanbana, school yokai of the third rank, for whom there is no equal in cruelty, inhumanity, and brutality, is cute? Sorry, I'm not that kind of girl. Well then, who should we play with next? Which child should we toy with, I wonder? Oh, jeez. I'll be the one who plays with you. Let's not meddle with any other students. Well, it seems that Higanbana can't even keep Simple Marie as her pet. I am the dancing Higanbana master of the infirmary, so who will I curse and cast a spell on next, I wonder? I wonder who will I'll imprison in this infirmary. While I think about that, perhaps I'll gaze at the clock that spins for eternity, never once receiving the rays of dawn. Then again, maybe I'll give myself a little break from all this hunting. Instead, I'll have these rice cakes, and tomorrow, I'd like some rice cakes. You simply must bring me some. I'll wait for you. Imagine that, a horror story that has a good ending where no one dies. Wasn't expecting that one. Nice twist.
I was thinking surely someone was gonna bite it. Surely someone's gonna bite it, and it's like, it has to be him, right? He's the protagonist? No, he lives. Photographer guy lives. That was cool. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. This chapter was a lot of fun, but it felt a lot longer than the previous one. Perhaps that was due to my expectations of the story, but if you look at the length of the video for the previous chapter, it's pretty obvious which one actually took longer to get through. Despite it feeling like a longer story, I still enjoyed this story. I think it was quite interesting the way they introduced a new character and what might just be a recurring side character, and the photographer. I'm hoping that we actually get to see a little bit more of him, as I didn't mind him too much, and I'd like to see how he interacts with the rest of the cast of the story. Are they going to expand the characters chapter by chapter? I'm really interested to see which of the other curses or which curse items maybe they cover in the next chapter. Like, there's a lot to look forward to, and we're still in the second chapter. I think if there's like going to be an investigation like there is in the previous stories Ryukichi's written, it's got to be about Higanbana herself, as it seems like that's the one thing that we're not getting enough information on, which he wants us to perhaps piece together. Either way, it's going to be a blast. See you in the next video.